There are also the spirit stone veins and the awakening tea tree in the center of the island. They are certainly not suitable for them to touch at will. At most, they should be guarded by Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan. These are the most precious things. Although the island is full of people, it is still necessary to take precautions. After all, once damaged, the cost will be too high. From this point of view, Zhou Daocheng had no choice but to arrange for them to clean up the weeds in the East Plain and then dig up the soil to cultivate the spiritual fields. No matter the development of any force, it is inseparable from the cultivation of spiritual fields, especially the cultivation of spiritual rice and some commonly used elixirs. Not only for the forces, but also for the members of the hunting team, they also need a small piece of their own spiritual field to plant and maintain daily life consumption. In addition, Zhou Daocheng also arranged for Lin Yuan to explore the situation in the surrounding lakes. There are mainly two aspects: whether there are dangerous aquatic monsters and whether there are valuable fish. After making arrangements, Zhou Daocheng estimated the time. It had been nearly half a year since he started cleaning up the monsters, and it was time to go back. On the one hand, it is necessary to understand the external situation, such as the movements of the Wang family of Qianyanshan, the Tang family of Tianpu, and the Qingshan sect. Or the progress of cleaning up the 100 insect poison swamp and establishing Donglanfang city. On the other hand, it was impossible to completely hide the discovery of spiritual veins from the Qianyanshan Wang family. Zhou Daocheng didn't think that he could unknowingly occupy a spiritual vein under the eyes of the Zifu forces without being discovered. It would be fine if this kind of thing never gets discovered, but one day when the incident comes to light, the forces of the Z Mansion will never let it go. What's more, before the 100 insect poison marsh was cleaned up, the head of the Wang family had promised him that he could choose a spiritual vein from the 100 insect poison marsh and completely settle in the 100 insect poison marsh. Therefore, there is no need for Zhou Daocheng to take this risk. Now, if I discover a spiritual vein and choose to occupy it, the head of the Wang family will most likely not refuse. With this thought in mind, Zhou Daocheng and his eldest brother Zhou Daobai left and began to return to the outskirts of 100 Insects Poison Marsh. They were still traveling through the colorful miasma, and the two of them were already familiar with the journey. They could also take advantage of the opportunity of returning to continue hunting monsters and expand their harvest. So far, a total of 12 second-level monsters have been hunted, and the most powerful golden bone tiger is comparable to the 5th level of foundation building. The rest are at the early stage of the 2nd level, such as bloodtusk wild boar, purple flame civet, etc. Overall, the harvest is quite fruitful. In the colorful miasma, Zhou Daocheng was surrounded by Wutu Guiyuan. He allowed a colorful centipede to attack. His body remained slightly motionless, and then he attached a red snake flame to his hand and slapped it into his head with a palm. Zhou Daocheng chuckled and said lightly, "The second-order low-grade colorful spotted centipede is pretty good. 6th brother, your strength is getting stronger and stronger. The second-level monsters can't even break your defense. I'm afraid that after a while, eldest brother will no longer be your opponent." Zhou Daobai was also quite impressed. Zhou Daocheng waved his hand and said, "Brother, you don't have to be modest. The Yinsha sword's own magic can kill even mid-level second-level monsters. This is not something ordinary second-level foundation building monks can do." Zhou Daobai also smiled lightly and did not refute. The two of them are extremely powerful. They have both practiced techniques and spells of the 3rd level or above. Their strength is far beyond that of monks of the same level. Only monks from big families who also practice high-quality techniques and spells can be on par with them. This represents not only temporary strength, but also potential, with a greater possibility of breaking through to higher realms. Bang! The two were chatting casually, and suddenly a dull voice came from not far away. Zhou Daocheng was packing up the monster materials when his eyes narrowed and he looked towards the direction where the sound came from. On the side, Zhou Daobai also suddenly stopped talking, frowned slightly, looked in the same direction, and said softly, "Is this the sound of monks fighting?" Zhou Daocheng moved faster in his hands and quickly packed away the monster materials. After stuffing them into the storage bag, he looked at the distance intently and lowered his voice and said, "If something happens, do you want to go take a look?" Zhou Daobai thought for a while and said, "Looking at the movement, it should be a monk, maybe a fellow Taoist from the Spirit Snake sect. It is necessary to check the situation. Then go and have a look." Zhou Daocheng took direct steps, shuttled through the jungle, and quickly moved in the direction of the sound, with Zhou Daobai following closely behind. The first time he saw the figure, the familiar spirit snake sect costumes came into view, and Zhou Daocheng's eyes suddenly lit up. Really, the spirit snake sect? Looking closely, there were only a dozen people left in the spirit snake sect team. Qin Chengyu was fighting an old man in black robes. There was not much difference in strength between the two, and they were inseparable. However, the battle between the two looked very awkward and seemed to be full of loopholes. Each sword was a little slow and the spells they released were all crooked. Sensing the abnormality, Zhou Daocheng looked at their eyes and found that they were all closed, probably still in an illusion. After thinking for a moment, Zhou Daocheng took action without hesitation, using his spiritual magic to turn his spirit into a sharp needle and pierce Qin Chengyu's mind directly. After this period of training, this method of controlling mental power has become perfect. The fine mental needles will not cause any harm to the consciousness. They only have a stimulating effect, which is enough to restore the person who has fallen into the illusion. Stimulated by the mental power, Qin Chengyu's face changed drastically during the battle, his body froze, and he felt a strong sense of insecurity. But the next moment, a moment of mental confusion made him temporarily escape from the illusion. He vaguely noticed something unusual and looked very struggling. A moment of slowness also allowed the old man in black to seize the opportunity. The green palm print came quickly with great momentum, which was obviously a very powerful spell. Since Zhou Daocheng had taken action, he naturally could not let Qin Chengyu be injured. He took a step forward to block in front, and Wu Tu Gui Yuan protected his right hand, directly resisting the opponent's palm print spell. Suddenly someone entered the battle, and Qin Chengyu and the old man in black noticed it and quickly took a step back. During this time, Qin Chengyu quickly broke free from the illusion and slowly opened his eyes with a hint of confusion. When he saw the figure in front of him clearly, he was a little confused and said, "My friend, what is this?" Zhou Daocheng did not say much. "I'll explain it later. Do you know this old man?" He had to at least figure out who the old man in front of him was. If there was a grudge, he would naturally take advantage of him being in the illusion to solve it directly. If it was a misunderstanding, it didn't matter if they were rescued at the same time. However, Qin Chengyu looked at the old man in black in front of him and shook his head and said, "I don't know him. I was clearly fighting a monster just now." Zhou Daocheng immediately understood that this was obviously a misunderstanding, but for the sake of safety, he chose to find out the identity of this person first. The eldest brother Zhou Daobai took action with tacit understanding. He gently picked up the white bone sword in his hand, directly picked off the waist badge of the old man in black and threw it over. Zhou Daocheng just glanced at it, his expression became strange, and he looked at the old man with some surprise. "How is it? Who is this person?" Zhou Daocheng raised his eyebrows and said 3 words, "Qingyu Guan." "Oh, it turns out to be someone from Qingyu Guan. That's not right." Zhou Daobai's expression was normal, but then he seemed to think of something. Suddenly his face changed, and he looked at the old man fiercely, and asked with some surprise, "Is this person from Qingyu Guan?" Zhou Daocheng nodded. This was not a very familiar name. Although he had heard of it before, he had no contact with the Zhou family. However, this force has another identity. The master of Qingyu Temple is an inner disciple of Qingshan sect. His strength has reached the 7th level of foundation building. After leaving Qingshan sect, he founded a sect and established Qingyu Temple. Although they have left the Qingshan sect, Qingyu Guan has a close relationship with the Qingshan sect and is one of the first forces to join the Qingshan sect. However, what does it mean when people from Qingyuguan suddenly appear in 100 Insect Poison Marsh? It goes without saying. Zhou Daocheng's expression darkened. He took a deep look at the old man in black, and said bluntly, "Let's attack together and capture him alive." Zhou Daobai took action without hesitation. Although Qin Chengyu didn't understand the situation yet, he took out his spear directly. Since they were captured alive, it was naturally impossible to let Zhou Daobai and Qin Chengyu take the main attack. The two mainly focused on killing. Zhou Daocheng was definitely better at encircling and capturing this kind of thing. The snake bone spiritual array was deployed, and snake bones as white as jade emerged like snake teeth, surrounding the old man in black from all directions, restricting his figure. Then in the spirit puppet formation, the frost poison toad and the poisonous armored lizard jointly attacked, and under Zhou Daocheng's personal control, they were easily injured. Moreover, this person was deeply trapped in the illusion, and his strength was greatly damaged. He was captured without much resistance and was directly trapped in the snake bone spiritual array, without being able to move. Zhou Daocheng took out his storage bag without any politeness and rummaged through it. There are no particularly precious items in it. These are elixirs used for daily practice, talismans and magic weapons used in combat. The only valuable ones are two, Long Blast Wind Talisman, which are used to enhance speed and are used on the road, or a talisman for escape. These things were not too noteworthy, but Zhou Daocheng took out a few envelopes from the storage bag. When he saw the contents on the envelope, his pupils contracted slightly. On the side, Zhou Daobai took a look and said with slight surprise, "Is this a private letter to Yulongmen?" Qin Chengyu was also a little surprised. The Qingshan sect has moved so quickly. In just a short time, it has already instigated the rebellion of the Wang family of Qianyan Mountain. It is truly worthy of its thousands of years of heritage. Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly, but then shook his head and said, "It shouldn't be an instigation of rebellion. Maybe the Yulongmen had already defected to the Qingshan sect from the beginning, but because it was close to the 100 insect poison swamp, they took advantage of the situation and defected to Qianyan Mountain as an undercover agent." Wang family. If you think about it carefully, this situation has a high probability of happening. Perhaps, among the forces that have taken refuge in Qianyan Mountain, apart from the undercover agents of the Yulong sect, there are probably other people from the Qingshan sect. Among the forces that have taken refuge in the Qingshan sect, there are also many nails planted by the Qianyanshan Wang family and the Tian Puppet Tang family. How could the game between big forces be so simple? Just like a deep pool, there are only slight waves on the surface, but the bottom of the pool may have been turned upside down. And all this time, what Zhou Daocheng and others saw were just superficial waves. Suddenly, Zhou Daocheng asked with some confusion, "Why didn't Yulongmen use communication stones when contacting Qingshan sect? Instead, they used the oldest paper letters. Aren't they afraid of leaving traces?" Qin Chengyu explained. "Then you have misunderstood. Communication stones are actually easier to leave traces than letters. After all, communication is transmitted using some kind of spiritual means. The strong men of Zifu can intercept it directly and cannot destroy it even if they want to." Quote. "This kind of letter is different. After it is burned, there is no way to recover it. And if my guess is correct, this person's storage bag should have a self-destruction method. Once something unexpected happens, all evidence can be destroyed immediately." Zhou Daocheng was stunned, and immediately checked the storage bag, and found that there was a restriction hidden in it, which could cause the storage bag to self-destruct with just a thought. However, the situation of the colorful miasma was completely accidental. He was in a fantasy world and couldn't tell the difference between real and fake, so he had no chance to destroy the storage bag. Zhou Daocheng was quite emotional. It seemed that being able to get these letters was an unexpected surprise. At the same time, he also understood what significance such a letter would have to the Wang family of Qianyanshan. It is definitely not just about destroying the Jade Dragon sect. It is just a small force and is not worth mentioning to the Wang family of Qianyan Mountain. However, passing through the Jade Dragon Gate can lead to a huge clue, which may play a vital role at a critical moment. If we take action now and directly uproot all the undercover agents, we will definitely give the Qianyanshan Wang family a certain advantage and avoid many dangers and the possibility of leaking secrets. Or they could leave the Jade Dragon Gate behind and wait until the critical moment to send some wrong news to the Qingshan sect, which could also significantly affect the situation of the battle. Qin Chengyu couldn't help but said, "Tisk tisk, little friend, it seems that you have made a lot of money this time. If you give this thing to the Wang family of Qianyan Mountain, I'm afraid it won't be an exaggeration to exchange it for a Foundation establishment pill." Zhou Daocheng also looked excited. The value of these ordinary letters was definitely beyond imagination. All you need to do is hand over the old man in black in front of you and all the letters here to the head of the Wang family, and you can completely consolidate Wugu's position in the poisonous swamp of 100 insects. Originally, he planned to stay in the colorful miasma for a few more days, but after this accident, Zhou Daocheng changed his mind and rushed back to the outskirts of the 100 insect poison marsh overnight to hand over the things to the Wang family as soon as possible. Before that, he also used mental power to free all the monks of the spirit snake sect from the illusion. By the way, let me explain the general situation to Qin Chengyu. When Qin Chengyu learned about the strange ability of the colorful miasma and the state they were in before, Qin Chengyu also stood on his head with the hair on his head, feeling that he had just walked away from the gate of hell. "If I don't have my little friend to rescue me this time, I'm afraid our spirit snake sect will be completely wiped out here." Qin Chengyu sighed in fear, looking at the colorful miasma around him with a hint of fear in his eyes. Although Zhou Daocheng had told them how to resist the colorful miasma, they still couldn't resist the fear in their hearts, so they didn't want to stay long and left directly with Zhou Daocheng and others. And this time, the Spirit Snake sect also suffered heavy losses in hunting monsters, and the hunting team they brought was almost completely destroyed. And after they fell into the illusion, they did not rest on the spot like Zhou Daocheng did, but kept rushing around in the colorful miasma, which led to the loss of many disciples, and many people were attacked by monsters, so now there are only a dozen people left. Therefore, even if they are rescued now, they have no intention of continuing to hunt monsters, and only want to return to the sect as soon as possible. After nearly half a month of traveling, the two forces rushed all the way back to the periphery of the 100 Insects Poison Swamp. And in the periphery, they found the leader of the earthly evil sect, Lin Xiaoyuan, who had come out in advance. After a brief conversation, the two learned that Lin Xiaoyuan ran all the way back after being chased by wild beasts that day, which avoided falling into danger. Afterwards, they also tried to contact Zhou Daocheng and Qin Changyu, but the communication stones of both sides were completely ineffective and could not be connected at all. Perhaps strictly speaking, it cannot be considered ineffective, but because they are in the illusion, they will imagine the sound of the communication stone as other sounds, so they don't care at all. Lin Xiaoyuan was alone, so he dared not go deeper, so he could only hunt monsters on the periphery, so fortunately he did not encounter the dangerous situation of Zhou Daocheng and others. At this moment, seeing Zhou Daocheng and Qin Changyu's heavy losses, Lin Xiaoyuan was also frightened, and secretly sighed that it was fortunate that he did not go deeper, otherwise he would probably suffer the same ordeal. After a brief conversation, the three of them did not want to continue hunting monsters, so they separated to rest. Lin Xiaoyuan took the main focus of stability and continued to stay on the periphery to hunt weaker monsters. Although the harvest was relatively small, it was relatively safer. Qin Changyu, on the other hand, took the remaining disciples of the Spirit Snake sect and rushed directly back to the Spirit Snake sect. He should not come again in a short time. Finally, Zhou Daocheng and his eldest brother Zhou Daobai also parted ways. The eldest brother Zhou Daobai took the Qingfeng shuttle and rushed back to Balin Lake urgently, telling the old patriarch about the third-level Spirit Stone vein, and tried to arrange the migration as soon as possible. At the same time, he also needs to return to Shenline Mountain, where there are nearly 20,000 ordinary mortals. If possible, he should take a group with him. After all, the area of the island is not small, and many tribesmen should be able to survive. The group of mortals going there can also add some fresh blood to the island. Zhou Daocheng went directly to see the head of the Wang family. But before that, he also sorted out the harvest this time. During the hunting of monsters this time, a lot of monster materials and precious natural treasures were obtained. Some of the materials are more precious and will be kept for their own use. As for the remaining ordinary materials, they will be exchanged for contribution points. For example, the spiritual life tree, the spider silk of the black flower ghost spider, the blood teeth and leather of the blood tooth wild boar, the bones of the golden bone tiger, the 4 yuanling flowers, etc., are expensive and rare, so they will be left for their own use. As for the remaining materials, find the cultivators of the Wang family in Qianyan Mountain to estimate and exchange them for contribution points. In the end, all the monster materials of the second-level monsters, plus some spiritual medicines and ores, were exchanged for more than 2,800 contribution points, which was more than he expected. After all, the most precious materials had been taken away by him. If all were added, it would probably exceed 5,000. Perhaps, the bones of the golden bone tiger alone could be worth thousands of contribution points, not to mention more precious items such as the spiritual life tree. In total, there are now more than 3,000 contribution points. Zhou Daocheng checked the list of items that can be exchanged and found that he could exchange quite a few items. Second-level inferior elixir only requires more than 500 contribution points. Second-level magic tools are relatively more expensive, about 1,000 contribution points. Second-level talismans are relatively cheaper. 500 contribution points can buy 2 to 3 pieces, but the price of higher quality talismans is also very expensive. There are also formations for sale, but they are expensive. For example, the second-level lower grade, Zanyang Lu Pan formation, is not a formation plate, but a large-scale formation arranged on the ground. It is more powerful and covers an area of 50 miles. The price is as high as 2,500 contribution points. The price of puppets is the same. They should be from the Tiangui Tang family. The second-level lower-grade puppets are worth more than 2,500 contribution points. Of course, is this price expensive? Different people naturally have different opinions. For most forces, using 2,500 contribution points to buy a formation or a second-level puppet is definitely a very profitable thing. In the market, if they want to buy these precious items, they will spend at least 50,000 to 100,000 spirit stones, and in most cases, there is no market for them, and they can't buy them even if they want to. So in a sense, contribution points are still very precious, and they can be regarded as the benefits given to everyone by the Wang and Tang families. However, for Zhou Daocheng, this price is a bit unrealistic. Because neither the formation nor the puppet is what he needs. After all, he is a second-level formation master. He can actually set up formations similar to the Zanyang Lu Pan formation, but he rarely sets up real formations. Of course, there is nothing he can do about it. It's mainly because it's not needed. For example, Bai Lin Lake has a low-quality spiritual vein and is not very dangerous. There is no need to set up a second-level large formation. A few mist-hidden formations are enough. Not to mention the Mist Valley, which has a second-level superior natural formation, which means that it can protect this market for a long time. However, Zhou Daocheng will most likely set up a second-level large-scale formation on the recently discovered island. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng's eyes are more focused on other items, such as various cultivation resources, techniques, spells, etc. However, the techniques and spells that can be put on the shelves are not of high quality, and many are ordinary goods. After repeated screening, Zhou Daocheng still did not find a satisfactory one. However, in the end, he bought a set of first-level top-quality, basic spells for immortal cultivation. This is not a high-end technique, and it can even be said to be very popular. The price is also very cheap, and it only consumes 100 contribution points. It records 12 first-level spells that can be practiced in the Qi refining period, as well as some control spells and basic knowledge of meditation practice. It is generally used to lay the foundation. However, this set of classics can indeed enhance the foundation. At least in Zhou Daocheng's impression, there was no such comprehensive spell in the Zhou family before. The 12 spells contained in it include Fireball, Spirit Rain, Earth Wall, Golden Arm, Speed, Birth Promotion, Spring, Soul Return, etc., which can be used in various aspects. It includes attack, defense, escape, recovery of spiritual energy, body cleansing, watering of spiritual medicine, birth promotion of spiritual medicine, etc. Although the effects are relatively weak, they have extraordinary significance for weaker cultivators. If the descendants of the Zhou family can be allowed to practice from an early age, they will definitely be able to lay a very good foundation. Zhou Daocheng did not exchange the remaining contribution points at will, but felt that they should be exchanged for some treasures that would increase the family's heritage, such as elixirs and heavenly materials and earthly treasures that would enhance cultivation and assist breakthroughs. The foundation establishment pill is naturally the most suitable, but it requires too many contribution points and cannot be redeemed yet. Zhou Daocheng thought for a long time and gave up the exchange for the time being. He planned to wait until he handed over the old man Qingyu Guan to the head of the Wang family to see if he could get another contribution point. At that time, he might be able to exchange it directly for the foundation establishment pill. Arriving at the location of the Wang family in Qianyan Mountain, Zhou Daocheng was about to go in, but was directly stopped by the Wang family members. Fellow Taoist, this is the important place of my Wang family. What can I ask you for? Zhou Daocheng said calmly. Please tell the head of the Wang family that the juniors from Wugyufang City have something to ask for. The monk from the Wang family frowned and said, the master of the family is busy with affairs. It's not something you can just meet if you want. Is there a summons from the master of the family? Zhou Daocheng was a little helpless. He didn't expect that it would be difficult to meet the head of the Wang family, but it didn't seem surprising when he thought that he was the head of the Zifu family. After thinking for a moment, Zhou Daocheng said, Fellow Taoist, please tell Master Wang that what I want to report is related to the war between the Z Mansion forces. With that said, Zhou Daocheng took out a bag of spirit stones and stuffed them into the hands of the person blocking the road. The other party's eyes moved, but after checking the spirit stone in the storage bag, he still accepted it calmly, coughed lightly and said, Since fellow Taoist is so wise, I will go in and report it for you. A quarter of an hour later, Zhou Daocheng successfully met Wang Yunli, the head of the Wang family. My friend from Wugu, why are you in such a hurry to find me? It is said that it can affect the situation of the Z Mansion's forces. I'm afraid this is a bit exaggerated, Wang Yunli said calmly. Now before the war, he, the head of the Wang family, has many things to do, so he will naturally not be in a good mood after being disturbed. Zhou Daocheng didn't say much and chose to get straight to the point. He directly threw the old man in black forward, and then handed over the important letter. Wang Yunli had some doubts in his eyes. He glanced at the old man in black on the ground, and then focused on the letter in his hand. After just a few glances, his expression fluctuated slightly. He looked at Zhou Daocheng fiercely and asked in a deep voice, "Where was this person caught?" "Deep in the poisonous insect swamp. Can the identity be confirmed?" Zhou Daocheng handed over the identity jade tag and said, "This person should be from Qingyu Temple. Senior can investigate and find out this person's identity." Wang Yunli's eyes fluctuated. Zhou Daocheng didn't need to say more. He actually believed it. After all, many things cannot be faked, and there is no need to fake them. However, this matter was very relevant. Wang Yunli did not dare to be careless at all. He directly called the Wang family monks outside and said in a cold voice, "Go and check the situation of Qingyu Guan under the Qingshan sect. Find out the people." Tens of minutes later, a thick stack of information was placed in front of Wang Yunli. Wang Yunli glanced at the previous information and murmured to himself, "The great elder of Qingyu Temple, the temple's main disciple Wang Boyan, the 4th level of foundation building." When the identity of this person was truly confirmed, a faint surprise flashed deep in Wang Yunli's eyes. As the head of a family, how deep is his city and thinking? He knows the value of the person in front of him better than anyone else. If done well, the Wang family can gain a huge advantage before the war even begins. It can even play an extremely huge role at critical moments. Even for safety reasons, just obtaining some internal information of Qingshan sect from Old Man of the Night can bring huge value. The head of the Wang family knows how to operate it specifically. After lowering his eyes and thinking deeply for a long time, Wang Yunli slowly raised his head, took a deep look at the young man in front of him, and said, "This person is of great value. I will accept it. Just tell me what reward you need." Zhou Daocheng looked happy and said, "This junior has 2 requests. Say it, as long as it doesn't go too far, I can make the decision." Wang Yunli took a sip of tea and said calmly. Zhou Daocheng organized his speech and said, "We in Wugyufang City are just a small force, and the foundation building inheritance is unstable, so I hope to exchange it for a foundation building pill." Wang Yunli was not surprised. He nodded and said, "This is not a problem. The contribution points should be directly exchanged for the foundation establishment pill. I will work with you." As soon as these words came out, Zhou Daocheng just thought for a moment, and surprise appeared on his face. The meaning of this is actually equivalent to giving Zhou Daocheng a foundation building pill directly. He could spend only a little of his contribution points and then buy the foundation establishment pill, and the Wang family would still exchange it for him. As for why not give one directly, he probably understood the reason. Even for the Wang family, foundation establishment pills are not a common commodity. Taking out a few in the contribution point exchange is already a big loss, so naturally it is impossible to take out more. Zhou Daocheng hurriedly thanked him, but Wang Yunli just waved his hand and said, "You don't need to be polite, little friend. Let me make my second request." Zhou Daocheng couldn't hide the joy on his face and continued, "When I was cleaning out the monsters in the poisonous poison swamp, I found a spiritual vein. I hope to occupy this spiritual vein and take root here completely." "Oh," Wang Yunli's eyes lit up and he asked, "What quality of spiritual veins?" "2nd level top grade," Zhou Daocheng replied seriously, choosing to lie about the quality. The influence of the 3rd level spiritual stone vein is too great. He cannot guarantee that the Wang family will not be tempted, so it is necessary to cover it up. Besides, it is impossible for the Wang family to check this kind of thing in person. Wang Yunli nodded in admiration. Just relying on the cultivation of the early stage of foundation building, you can find a 2nd level high-grade spiritual vein. It seems that your means are not simple. It's just good luck. It happens to be a hidden spiritual vein that has not been occupied by monsters. Luck is also part of strength. Since it is the spiritual vein you found in Wugu, and I promised you before that I can reward you with a spiritual vein in Wugu, this spiritual vein belongs to you. When you exchange it for foundation building pills later, remember to report it." Wang Yunli smiled and arranged. Although the 2nd level high-grade spiritual vein is very precious, it is not necessary for the Qianyanshan Wang family, who has a big family business, to snatch it. Zhou Daocheng achieved his goal, so he bowed and said goodbye directly, without any dragging his feet. He was in a hurry to exchange for the foundation building pills. After all, the number of foundation building pills was limited, and he could only feel at ease when he got them in person. Returning to the contribution point exchange place again, he needed to use up his contribution points first, and then get the foundation building pills for free. After thinking for a long time again, Zhou Daocheng muttered to himself, the cultivation pills need to be from the same batch. Buy 3 Yuanling pills and Y Yuan pills each, which will cost about 2,500 contribution points. These two kinds of pills are very precious second-level pills. Zhou Daocheng still has a few Yuanling pills on his body. They are given to monks in the early stage of foundation building. They can greatly improve their cultivation. They are one of the most common cultivation pills. It is definitely a good idea to reserve more. Y Yuan Dan is a second-level middle-grade elixir. Its effect is not much different from that of Yuanling Dan. They are both elixirs for improving cultivation. They are only used by monks in the middle stage of foundation building and will definitely be used in the future. In addition, with the remaining 500 contribution points, Zhou Daocheng purchased a second-level growth liquid formula called Lingyu Growth Liquid, after careful consideration. This is a relatively rare, but highly valuable item. The growth liquid it contains can accelerate the growth of elixirs and can also provide vitality to stunted elixirs. Azuo, this is a general-purpose growth solution. Although it has a wide range of uses, the effect should be slightly worse than some unique growth solutions. But even so, Zhou Daocheng was very satisfied. After all, it was impossible to develop and prepare a growth solution for every kind of elixir. This was really unrealistic. This, Lingyu growth liquid, can be applied to various elixirs, whether it is lower quality Linggu or higher quality purple Qi green bamboo, it will have certain effects. In the end, with dozens of contribution points left, Zhou Daocheng directly exchanged them for a foundation establishment pill. Seeing this kind of pill again, Zhou Daocheng still couldn't help but sigh inexplicably. In order to buy a foundation building pill, almost half of the Zhou family's life had been consumed. Especially the last one, that is, the foundation building pill taken by the eldest brother Zhou Daobai, almost killed the entire Yangzi generation and Changzi generation, and truly exchanged the lives of 2 generations for the inheritance of the family. But at this moment, everything becomes easier. However, for the sake of safety, Zhou Daocheng did not stay in Baichong Poison Marsh, but rushed back to Foggy Valley. At this time, the Qingshan sect and the Wang and Tang families are still confronting each other. The war has not yet started in an all-round way. All parties are relatively free. Once the war starts, it will be difficult to even go back to Foggy Valley. Zhou Daocheng must take advantage of this opportunity to rush back to Wugu to make arrangements, take away some important things and transfer them to the third-level spirit stone veins as much as possible. The Foggy Valley is still the same, shrouded in thick clouds and mist, looking quiet and peaceful. However, the number of monks coming and going has increased a lot, and the strength of the monks coming and going has increased significantly. In the past, there were only about 50,000 monks in Wugyufang City, but now, it is conservatively estimated that the number of monks exceeds 150,000. So at first glance, it already seems a bit crowded. Zhou Daocheng was not surprised. This was actually a very normal thing. Because Wugyufang City is the closest city to Hundred Worms Poison Marsh, many forces come from all directions and will stop and rest in Wugyufang City. Moreover, after Zhou Daocheng took the initiative to join the Wang family, Wugu Fangxi, which was originally not well known, became completely known to everyone and gradually became a familiar city. Moreover, with future development, Foggy Valley will most likely be further expanded. After all, there is a large market nearby, and as long as a little benefit comes out, it will be enough for Wugu to eat a lot. Many monks do not have the conditions to live in Donglanfang City, so they can only settle for the next best thing and live in Wugu, which has relatively poor conditions. There are many loose cultivators or forces that are weak and not competitive enough. They cannot participate in the competition in Donglanfang City, so they can only survive in Wugyufang City. Donglanfang City will greatly increase the upper limit of Wugyufang City, bringing a lot of new blood and the addition of strong people. At the same time, Wugyufang City will share some of the pressure from Donglanfang City. Not only are the two sides not competing, but they can also complement each other and be connected on the periphery of the Dongdawang vein to increase the development progress of the 100 Chong Poison Marsh. After seeing this situation, Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but think, it seems that it is necessary to expand the city. Maybe under the influence of Donglanfang City, Wugyufang City may really go further. Zhou Daocheng's eyes flickered. The scale of Wugyufang market today is not even comparable to some small markets. It can only be said to be between micro markets and small markets. Even so, it has been able to bring a lot of wealth to Zhou Daocheng. So if one day, Wugyufang City truly becomes a small city, or even a medium-sized city, the benefits it can bring will inevitably increase several times. Just expanding the market cannot be done casually. Zhou Daocheng can actually use the formation to expand the area of the entire city, but the establishment of the city is still a huge project, including the later planning of the city, which also requires a lot of energy. Zhou Daocheng was thinking as he headed to the back of Wugyufang City. He planned to go to the place of gathering yin first, discuss the situation with Wei Hanshan, and take a look at the practice of Xuanyan body refining technique. So, instead of returning to Wugu Valley, Zhou Daocheng went directly to the place where yin gathered. The place is still full of gloomy energy, and it is a dark scene. You can't see the sky when you walk in it, only the gloomy energy is enveloped. But I have to say that the environment here is definitely a treasure place for cultivating the yin attribute. Although it was a bit uncomfortable for Zhou Daocheng to walk in it, the value of this place of gathering yin could not be denied. Zhou Daocheng was familiar with the road and dug a tunnel from the southern entrance to enter the place of Juyin. However, when he was walking in the tunnel, halfway through, his eyes suddenly froze and his frown stayed in place. Because at that moment, he had a vague premonition that made his heart tremble. For a strong person who has built a foundation, it is impossible to have palpitations for no reason. This kind of perception must have a reason. Zhou Daocheng walked slowly in the tunnel with a deep breath, sensing the situation around him. After a few breaths, his eyes looked in a certain direction. There was no passage there, but an area blocked by mud, but Zhou Daocheng vaguely sensed that there must be something going on there. Because just now, he felt that there were faint wisps of yin qi gathering in that direction. Although the number was very small, he still sensed it. There is a problem. Zhou Daocheng's eyes flickered, the light shield of the blue moon bracelet on his body flickered, and the spell Wu Tu Gui Yuan also surrounded him, always alert to the surrounding environment. At the same time, the quicksand formation and golden spear 100 vine formation in his hands also turned around and drilled in the direction of the abnormality. In just a few breaths, a huge hole was drilled. This is what Zhou Daocheng could clearly feel. After opening the passage, the yin qi inside was obviously several times denser. Sure enough, there is something going on. As the passage was further expanded and deeper into it, after about a dozen feet, the formation suddenly stopped. The path inside was opened. Zhou Daocheng took a step forward, but as soon as he approached, he felt a sense of danger and could not help but retreat suddenly. The next moment, he saw a pair of black and dry hands, wrapped in a thick and sinister aura, attacking him fiercely. Zhou Daocheng retreated quickly. If he hadn't dodged in time, he would have been seriously injured by this move. He immediately felt cold sweat. What is this? Qi Yuan was shocked and quickly retreated. Wu Tu Gui Yuan wrapped his whole body. The array plate in his hand had been taken out, and he looked at the black and dry hands in front of him vigilantly. Zhou Daocheng was sure that this was definitely a human hand, but it was very likely not a living person's hand. After taking a step back, he also roughly saw the appearance of the sneak attacker. A person of not very tall, full of wrinkles, shriveled and black, looks extremely weird. Zhou Daocheng's eyes condensed, and he muttered to himself, "Is this a zombie?" Only then did he recall in his mind that this was a rare secret technique in the world of immortal cultivation, which could refine dead bodies into zombies. This kind of zombie has an extremely hard body, which is almost impossible for cultivators of the same level to break, and its combat power is also very terrifying. Moreover, zombies are horribly poisonous. If you are hit by them accidentally, you will be invaded by the corpse poison. The zombie in front of you should be a second-level zombie, and its strength is very strong. As soon as Zhou Daocheng found the zombie, he immediately blasted the surrounding soil and looked behind the zombie. This kind of zombie is almost impossible to exist naturally. It must be artificially refined, so its owner must be nearby. As the surrounding soil was lifted up, a 20 square meter hole appeared in the back. It should be a small cave, and in it, there was indeed a black-robed figure sitting upright. Zhou Daocheng frowned slightly and said in a cold voice, "Who are you, and why did you break into my territory?" The black-clothed man sitting on the ground raised his head slightly, showing a pale face of a young man. He looked very young, but his eyes were sinister and deep, which made people shudder. The voice was hoarse, like a strong wind pouring into a wooden hole. "Your territory. So what? It doesn't belong to you now." The sinister young man looked cold, and quickly pinched the magic formula in his hand to control the dark zombie. The dark claws attacked Zhou Daocheng at a very fast speed. Zhou Daocheng hurriedly retreated, but he was underground, and the position was very narrow. There was no chance to move significantly, so he could only let the zombie attack. He also showed a defensive spell, Wutu Gui Yuan tightly wrapped. No matter how the zombie attacked, it could not cause effective damage. The sinister young man exclaimed, looked at Zhou Daocheng with interest, and sighed softly. What a strong defense, it can actually withstand the frontal attack of the black zombie. This second-level zombie, although only the second-level lower grade, is more powerful than that. Many strong men in the middle stage of foundation building will be killed if they are not careful. This kind of zombie that does not use magic and fights with pure physical strength is enough to suppress many monks with weaker physical fitness, and is almost invincible. Even many second-level body refining monks are not as good as zombies in terms of physical fitness. However, only Zhou Daocheng himself knows what kind of price he has to pay to withstand these attacks. Even though his defense is strong enough, he still feels very tired when facing it, and he was almost directly broken by Wutu Gui Yuan. This has to be said that the spell of Wutu Gui Yuan is not a one-time defense like the Blue Moon Bracelet. It can continuously input Wutu spiritual energy and maintain a high-intensity defense state. It is because of this that Zhou Daocheng can withstand it. So strong. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but sigh. The young man in front of him seemed to be younger than him, and he had such terrible strength. This was definitely not simple. On the opposite side, the sinister young man also showed a surprised expression. He looked at Zhou Daocheng with interest and said lightly, if you can withstand this time, how many times can you withstand it? The young man stood up, and the spell in his hand changed. A blue-black light instantly hit the body of the black zombie. The zombie stopped immediately, and the hard and old skin on the body began to twitch. After 2 breaths, black mist began to emerge from the 7 orifices. The corpse gas accompanied by the yin gas merged with the zombie in a short time, and the originally dark body was covered with a layer of dark green. The dangerous breath filled the air, and even the surrounding soil cracked. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but step back a few steps and didn't dare to get close. Zhou Daocheng didn't know much about zombies. After all, he only heard from others that their physical strength was extremely high. However, he didn't know what kind of ability the zombie training method had, especially the method used by the sinister young man just now, which instantly improved the zombie's strength a lot. Faced with such a situation, Zhou Daocheng no longer dared to face the enemy in person. He was a tortoise shell, with only defense and no attack. No matter how hard he fought, there would be no result. The real means still came from the formation. He did not hesitate to attack, and the snake bone spiritual formation drilled out of the soil and instantly stabbed the dark green zombie, but the hardness of the snake bone was too low. It did not cause any damage when it touched the zombie's skin. Instead, it was corroded by the poison gas and showed a lot of corrosion marks. The sinister young man could watch this scene without any change in his expression. He did not take such ordinary formation means into consideration at all. He just whispered to himself, second-level formation master, but the formation level is too ordinary. But before he finished speaking, the sinister young man's eyes suddenly changed. Looking at the newly appeared formation, his eyes narrowed slightly. This formation seems to be a little special. The spirit puppet formation appeared, and as the strongest means now, it immediately summoned 2 second-level spirit puppets, namely the blood-toothed wild boar and the purple flame spirit cat. Both of them are powerful. One is mainly offensive, and can mainly attack and control the mind. They immediately showed tacit cooperation. They could not be used in the tunnel, but they still suppressed the dark green zombie for a short time. Although the corpse poison of the dark green zombie is extremely harmful, it is not very effective for the puppet. After a few forced collisions, there was not much effect. Zhou Daocheng's eyes were deep, secretly controlling the 2 spirit puppets, silently looking for opportunities. Finally, as the green zombie revealed a hole, the blood-toothed wild boar rushed over and ran directly in the tunnel. Originally, the sinister young man did not take it seriously and was about to control the zombie to stop it. But the next moment, he saw the purple flame spirit cat quickly acted, and the purple flame wrapped the dark green zombie and controlled the zombie in an instant. It was this moment of opportunity, and the blood-toothed wild boar immediately passed the zombie and attacked the sinister young man behind. The sinister young man's expression changed slightly, and he hurried to stop it, but it was too late, and he could only withstand the attack of the blood-toothed wild boar. Boom. Bang. A huge roar echoed, and the surrounding soil and rocks kept falling, almost shaking the entire tunnel down. As the smoke and dust enveloped him, Zhou Daocheng breathed a sigh of relief. This series of actions were all completed in a short time. If you want to resolve the battle as quickly as possible, you cannot target zombies. This thing is just like the iron lump, and it is very troublesome to kill it completely. The best way is to get rid of the sinister young man behind. So at the beginning, Zhou Daocheng secretly kept a secret and did not let the Xian civet use Xian, just to make the final decision at the critical moment. The results are also very good. The effect of purple flame is very good, especially for zombies dominated by yin qi and corpse qi. It is simply a natural restraint. Just when Zhou Daocheng breathed a sigh of relief and planned to end the battle completely and deal with the young man, an accident suddenly happened. The zombie broke away from Xian's control in an instant, and slapped the Xian civet away with one palm. It quickly attacked Zhou Daocheng as if it had not been harmed at all. Zhou Daocheng's eyes moved, and he knew very well that Xian left a lot of burn marks on the zombies, so he must have suffered serious injuries, and it was absolutely impossible for him to be unharmed. There is only one reason for such a change. That is, the young man is not dead and is still controlling the zombies. Seeing the zombies attacking at a rapid speed, Zhou Daocheng first showed a look of fear, but then, the fear slowly subsided, and then turned into a hidden smile. You're the one I've been waiting for. Wutu Guiyuan protected his whole body, and the zombies could not be broken through with one attack. After only a short pause, Zhou Daocheng took action quickly. The red snake flame, which is more terrifying than the purple flame, bursts out with all its strength. This is the first time Zhou Daocheng uses the red snake tattoo with all his strength. The power of this kind of tattoo reaches the second level high grade, and it may even be a third level magical power. Although it has not yet reached the third level, if it is used without any scruples, it may be possible to reach the level of minor supernatural powers, but it will be difficult for the body to bear it. Zhou Daocheng struck out with a palm, and the red snake flame set off a terrifying heat wave, turning the entire tunnel into fiery red. The temperature increased by more than dozens of degrees, completely melting the surrounding soil and stones, and even the skin on the zombies begins to burn. With such a strong attack and stimulation, this zombie actually began to make a wailing sound, crackling and burning, making it unable to help but retreat. Zhou Daocheng, on the other hand, showed no mercy, and inserted his hand covered in red snake flames directly into the zombie's brow. Whether it is a monk, a monster, or a puppet, they all have a core, and zombies are no exception. If you guessed correctly, the core of this zombie should be in the head or heart. Zhou Daocheng said lightly. Zombies are not flawless. Because they are made from dead objects, they require a trace of mental power in the zombies to control them. Moreover, if zombies want to improve their strength, they also need a core to accumulate corpse energy and yin energy. This is just like the meridians and dantian of human beings, the demon elixir of monsters, and the spirit stones at the core of puppets. They are all indispensable. Once destroyed, they will be seriously injured and lose all their strength, or die on the spot. Zombies, too. As Zhou Daocheng stabbed his finger, the flames burned the zombie's head, and a zombie slowly fell down. The tunnel fell into silence, and it took a long time to think of clapping. Ba bang bang. The sinister young man stood up from the dust in the distance, looked at Qi Yuan with a stern face, and said calmly, Your Majesty, it's a good idea. It's a lie to attack me, and it's a lie to attack the puppet. It turns out that the real trump card is hidden in yourself. Zhou Daocheng looked at the young man with solemn eyes. You are equally good at it. The plan is actually full of changes. It would be great if the blood-toothed wild boar could be used to seriously injure the young man from the very beginning. But now it seems that the young man's own strength is also very good. He can at least bear the blood-toothed wild boar, and at least he has the third level of foundation building. Coupled with the fact that he has such a young face, probably no more than 20 years old, it is even more amazing. The sinister young man did not make another move or continue to compliment, but changed the subject and asked, Are you an array master? However, before Qi Yuan could speak, the young man continued, But your formation method seems to be very special. It is obviously a first-level formation method. In this way, you can control the corpse of a third-level foundation-building monster. This is your unique method. Zhou Daocheng frowned slightly. The formation road is open to all rivers, and there are so many talents in the world. What's wrong with making changes? Hearing this, the sinister young man was stunned for a moment, and then showed a sinister smile. Yes, what's the point of following the rules? It's precisely because of changes that it becomes interesting. Zhou Daocheng didn't talk nonsense with this person, and said coldly, Your Excellency, please leave here. Don't blame me for continuing to take action. After thinking for a moment, he still chose to give up and leave. He was so young and was proficient in zombie refining. His identity was probably not simple. If he were to be killed, there would be consequences. The young man did not speak, but walked over slowly and stood in front of Zhou Daocheng with calm eyes. He said calmly, I need to borrow this place to gather yin. I will leave when I'm done with it. Then, with just a slight wave of his hand, the black man on the ground slowly got up, followed the young man sluggishly, and walked out of the passage. Zhou Daocheng's eyes narrowed. He took a deep look at He Zheng, and then at the young man, feeling cold sweat breaking out. He Zheng actually didn't die. He was almost certain that when he took action previously, he must have destroyed the key point of this black zombie. If it was an ordinary black zombie, he would definitely die. Moreover, the red snake flame is a masculine fire, which is particularly restrained against the evil spirit, and will inevitably cause greater damage to the black zombie. As a result, under such circumstances, the black zombie can actually stand up, which is incredible. And there is one more important point. The black zombie was not completely dead, and had been lying at his feet before. If he suddenly attacked, I am afraid that even if Zhou Daocheng had a strong defense, he would be injured. It's just that I, the young man, did not do it. Looking at the back figure moving away, Zhou Daocheng's eyes were deep, and he suddenly said, What's your name? Which force are you from? The sinister young man paused, but replied, Yin He. Then he took out a bronze jade token from his waist and threw it directly to Zhou Daocheng. He said, If you have the opportunity to go to the Zhongyu Shushan realm in the future, you can find me with the jade token. If I am free, I will buy you a pot of wine. After that, he left without looking back. However, he should not have completely left the yin gathering place, but found a new area and began to absorb the yin energy here. Zhou Daocheng glanced at the jade token, which was engraved with an ancient character, which should be the word, ghost, in the ancient characters of the immortal world. Zhongyu immortal world. Other people in the immortal world. Zhou Daocheng muttered to himself, with a surprised tone. Each immortal cultivation world has an extremely large territory, with a large number of immortal cultivation forces living inside. The environment and cultural customs are very different, almost two completely different worlds. It may be difficult for a foundation building expert to leave an immortal cultivation world in his entire life. Just like the Nanhang immortal cultivation world where Qingshan sect is located, it is just one of the many immortal cultivation worlds, among which there are a large number of forces like Qingshan sect. The so-called Qingshan sect territory is just a corner of the Nanhang immortal cultivation world. For the Zhou family, it is not easy to leave the Qingshan sect territory, let alone cross the immortal cultivation world. It is said that there is another immortal cultivation world on the other side of the East Great Wilderness Vein, but Zhou Daocheng is not sure whether this immortal cultivation world is the Zhongyu immortal cultivation world. But no matter what, the identity of this young man is definitely not simple. The forces that can cross the immortal cultivation world are at least 3 level or above. Zhou Daocheng accepted the jade card and did not continue to care about the young man. From the look of him, he was indeed just borrowing the yin energy here. If they really had ulterior motives, they would have killed the cultivators inside and occupied this place of yin gathering, and they would not have hidden underground to cultivate. Since there was no malicious intent, Zhou Daocheng was unwilling to care about it. Entering the yin gathering place, he found the Earth Spirit House, hidden underground. From a distance, Zhou Daocheng could sense that there were a total of 12 sets of Earth Spirit houses, each of which housed 12 9th-level Qi refining cultivators. Among them, 11 people were the candidates for practicing the Zan Yin body refining technique, this time, namely Bai Cholan, Huang Long, Wu Shangling, Wan Yang, Xiao Lan, 3 people from the guard team, 3 people from the hunting team, and Zhou Daoqi. However, because the hunting team was in urgent need of manpower, Lu Chengzhou came out of retreat in advance and participated in the cleaning of the 100 insects poison swamp, so he is not here at the moment. Bai Cholan, Huang Long, Wu Shangling, Wan Yang, and Xiao Lan, who had once joined Zhou Daocheng, were at the 8th level of Qi refining, but now, they have all successfully broken through to the 9th level of Qi refining. Moreover, the 5 people's auras are different, and it is obvious that there are differences in their cultivation. Among them, Wu Shangling and Xiao Lan have the strongest auras, and their strengths are improving rapidly. They have reached the middle stage of the 9th level of Qi refining, and are almost reaching the late stage. Moreover, because they practice the third-level technique, Zanyin body refining technique, they are considered half-body cultivators, and their overall strength is extremely high, so their actual combat power should be no weaker than that of ordinary people in the late stage of the 9th level of qi refining. In addition, Wanyang's strength has also reached the middle stage of the 9th level of qi refining, but there is no trace of yin sha qi. Zhou Daocheng understood with a little perception that Wanyang's spiritual roots were not suitable for Zanyin body refining technique, so she did not succeed in practicing, but her strength improved a lot. As a cultivator with 3 spiritual roots of wood, earth and gold, Wanyang mainly practices wood spiritual roots, and she is also a spiritual plant master. It is normal for her to practice Zanyin body refining technique. If she finds a spiritual plant master's inheritance in the future, or a high-quality wood attribute technique, it will not be too late for her to practice. Finally, Bai Cholan and Huang Long had the most special auras. Although they had also reached the 9th level of qi refining, they should have just broken through, so their auras were a little frivolous. The two of them did not practice as a secondary practitioner, but directly practiced the Zanyin body refining technique, and took this set of exercises as the basis, practicing from the beginning to the 9th level of qi refining, so the progress was relatively slow. But it was gratifying that both of them succeeded in the recultivation. The body was shrouded in rich and pure yin qi, and the body was several times tougher. Although the realm was not as good as the other 3, the strength should not be weak at all. After all, the main practice of the third-level exercises greatly improved the strength, and it would also greatly affect the potential. If the probability of Wu Shangling, Wanyang, and Xiaolan breaking through is 1, then the probability of Bai Cholan and Huang Long breaking through is at least 5. If there are extra foundation building pills, Zhou Daocheng will also consider Bai Cholan and Huang Long first. Moreover, this retraining was a complete transformation for Huang Long. He was originally a half-baked body refining cultivator, but because of the problem of the technique, he was stuck at the 8th level of qi refining for his whole life. Now that he has started over again, he seems to have been reborn and has shown great potential. In terms of the progress of body refining alone, he is much faster than others. Zhou Daocheng nodded with satisfaction. These 5 people are not included in the system of Wugyufang City. They belong to Zhou Daocheng's personal combat force and can be brought to the 3rd-level Spirit Stone Vein to prepare for the development there. Zhou Daocheng roughly checked the situation of the other 6 people. Zhou Daocheng was not familiar with the 2 people in the hunting team. Both of them were minors in the Xuanian body refining technique, and they succeeded. In addition, Lu Chengzhou originally planned to retrain the Xuanian body refining technique, but failed in the end and came out of retreat ahead of time. The 3 captains of the guard team also minored in the Xuanian body refining technique. The process was relatively smooth. Their strength has reached the middle and late stages of the 9th level of qi refining, which is considered a group of impressive combat forces. Finally, Zhou Daocheng focused on his 4th brother Zhou Daoqi, who also chose to retrain and succeeded, and successfully broke through to the 9th level of qi refining. Moreover, because of his higher talent, his progress was faster than Bai Cholan and Huang Long. Zhou Daocheng was actually very curious about how his 4th brother Zhou Daoqi could refine a 2nd-level magic weapon at the 9th level of qi refining. Moreover, the white bone longsword of his eldest brother Zhou Daobai was already a 2nd-level lower-grade magic weapon of good quality. To reach the level of a 2nd-level refiner in the qi refining period is almost something that only appears in legends. Taking this opportunity, Zhou Daocheng could just ask about the situation. After roughly understanding the progress of everyone, Zhou Daocheng pushed the door and entered the Earth Spirit House. Wei Hanshan was guarding everyone. When he noticed something was happening outside, he stood up immediately and stared at the door. But when he saw that it was Zhou Daocheng, he was relieved and bowed respectfully. "Hello, Senior Wu Jiyu." Zhou Daocheng waved his hand and said, "Thank you for your hard work. How are you? You haven't come out of retreat." Wei Hanshan nodded and said, after everyone successfully recultivated and supplemented their cultivation, they all came out to report their safety, including those who broke through the realm later. Zhou Daocheng nodded. If a qi refining cultivator retreated for half a year or a year, that would be an abnormal situation. After all, they couldn't even do the fasting, and they still needed to eat spiritual grains. They didn't need to come out of retreat every once in a while. Zhou Daocheng knew that everyone was in good condition, so he didn't continue to retreat with them, but released his own Wu Earth spiritual qi, which spread to everyone's retreat room, causing a faint movement. Such a simple action will not interrupt everyone's practice. It is a relatively gentle method that can wake everyone up from seclusion. Soon, people came out of the customs one after another and came to Zhou Daocheng, saluting one after another. I've met the Lord of Foggy Valley. Senior Kuridani, are you here? I've met Senior Wu Ji Yu. Only Hua Niang came out and said with some embarrassment, I'm sorry, Senior, I failed to practice the Zanyin body refining technique successfully, and I failed my senior. Zhou Daocheng smiled and said calmly, it's not your problem. It's just that this set of exercises is not suitable for you. Don't think too much about it. Hua Niang looked a little embarrassed, obviously feeling uncomfortable because she could not practice the third-level skills. Even after Zhou Daocheng comforted her, she did not recover. Zhou Daocheng looked at everyone and said, you are almost done with your cultivation. It just so happens that there are a lot of things to be busy with during this period. It is time for everyone to return to Wugyufang City. Everyone nodded in agreement. Although the training environment here is better, it is impossible to stay here forever and have strong strength. If it cannot really be used, it is useless. A group of 12 people, all of whom have reached the 9th level of Qi training, are a very powerful force, enough to make the precarious Wugu more stable. Zhou Daocheng took them back to Wugu and placed them back in their respective posts. The 2 hunting team captains and the 3 guard team captains all returned to their positions and resumed taking charge of their own teams. They have minored in Xuanian body refining technique, and also possess powerful magic weapons and formations, as well as elixirs and talismans provided by Shaodan Pavilion and the Wang family. They are already extremely powerful beings among the 9th level weapon refining monks. If someone makes trouble in Wugyufang City, but their strength does not exceed the 9th level of Qi refining peak, they can easily deal with it. Zhou Daocheng did not make any special arrangements for Bai Cholan, Huang Long, Wu Shangling, Hua Niang, and Xiao Lan. Instead, he planned to take Bai Cholan, Huang Long, Wu Shangling, Hua Niang, and Xiao Lan to Baichong Poison Marsh and still train them as a private combat force. Today, the Zhou family is withering away, and there are only more than 20 clan members in total. There are very few people who can use it, and there are also very few people who are worthy of training. In order to ensure the strength of the family, Zhou Daocheng must accumulate some private combat power to protect his clan members and ensure the safety of the family's residents. In the end, Wei Hanshan returned to his old job and was responsible for managing the entire Wugyufang City. However, from the current point of view, Wei Hanshan's strength is somewhat insufficient, although his strength has reached the late stage of the 9th level of Qi refining, which is stronger than most hunting team captains. However, after all, he is the person in charge of Wugyufang City. If he does not have strong strength, how can he control the situation? At least in Zhou Daocheng's opinion, it is necessary to reach the foundation building stage in order to secure this position. But this is almost impossible for Wei Hanshan, because he is over 70 years old, his energy and blood are beginning to decline, and his strength is declining day by day. Even if he obtains the foundation establishment pill, he will not be able to successfully break through. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng could only settle for the second best and let Wei Hanshan and Xie Zhouhei cooperate with each other to jointly manage Wugyufang City. Fortunately, most of the guards and hunting team captains in Wugyufang City respect Wei Hanshan very much, and they usually call him Old Wei, respectfully. The same goes for Xie Zhouhei, who usually calls Wei Lao, while Wei Hanshan calls Xie Zhouhei, Senior Xie. The two sides have different opinions and have a very close relationship. Because of this, Zhou Daocheng can safely hand over the management of Wugyufang City to Wei Hanshan. And taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhou Daocheng also had an exchange with Wei Hanshan about the expansion of Wugyufang City. With the establishment of Donglinfang City and the cleanup of 100 insect poison swamp, the number of monks in the surrounding area will only increase, and the flow of people in Wugyufang City will also increase. Therefore, expansion is very necessary. After hearing Zhou Daocheng's opinion, Wei Hanshan nodded seriously. After thinking carefully for a long time, he said with approval, for the future of Fangxi, expansion is necessary, and it must be done in a short time. Otherwise it will be more difficult if it is too late. Zhou Daocheng nodded. This was also what he was considering. Nowadays, Donglinfang City has not been built, and the cleanup of 100 insect poison swamp has not been completely completed, so there are relatively few monks around. If we start expansion as early as possible at this time, the impact should be smaller, and future development will also be beneficial. If the time is delayed, expansion will only become more and more difficult. Zhou Daocheng said, so I plan to expand Fang City in these few days. I will expand the area of AA the First Valley, but the subsequent construction and layout work may need to be completed by Wei Laoji. Wei Hanshan did not agree immediately, but kept thinking in his mind and considering the difficulty of the matter. For Zhou Daocheng, this is a very easy thing. He only needs to use the power of the formation to change the terrain and expand the area. However, for Wei Hanshan, he needs to dismantle the original city, replan and lay out it, and also contact all forces and cooperate together to achieve this expansion of the city. Moreover, in this layout, we also need to consider future expansion and strive to achieve it once and for all. So the complexity is greater than imagined. Wei Hanshan thought about it for a long time and seemed to have made up his mind. He gritted his teeth and said, although the matter is a bit difficult, it must be done. Wei, I guarantee that I can do it, but I must try my best. Mr. Wei, there is no need to feel pressure. Just arrange the arrangements. I will take care of any situation that arises. As the Lord of Wugu and the General Manager of Wugu Market, Zhou Daocheng also gave Wei Hanshan enough support at this time to ensure that he did not have to bear too much burden. Wei Hanshan was moved and made a request. Don't worry, the layout of the market is not a problem. But the most important thing is that all forces need to cooperate. This requires the senior to come forward in person and talk to the heads of the families. Zhou Daocheng nodded and said, I will go and tell them to cooperate with you at that time. After the instructions, Zhou Daocheng visited them one by one. There is no need to say much about the Zhou family. Whenever there is any need, as long as Zhou Daocheng gives an order, they will naturally support it with all their strength. The Lingxi sect is very sensible. As one of the strongest forces, the Lingxi sect is very sensible in Wugu Market. On weekdays, they make money. Whatever happens, they will fully cooperate with Zhou Daocheng. This time is no exception. After Zhou Daocheng told him, he agreed directly. Zhou Daocheng also notified Xiaodan Pavilion, Wang family, and Yuan Zong's Yuan family. As the earliest force to join Wugu Market, they also agreed immediately. After all, for them, the further expansion of Wugu Market is also a good thing for them. If they stay in a micro market, they may not be able to become a foundation building force in a few decades. However, if it is a small market or a medium-sized market, their future will be brighter. In the end, only the Qin family was left, and Zhou Daocheng visited them in person. In fact, he was not worried that the Qin family would disagree or make trouble. After all, they were no longer the Qin family of Xi'an Pavilion, and now they were completely down and out. Even the 9th level Qi refining strongman used the spiritual secret method to control, which can be said to be very stable. As for why he had to go there in person, it was also to understand the recent situation of the Qin family. In any case, after all, it has only been a short time since they joined, and more management must be done to prevent some unexpected situations. When he came to the valley of the Qin family, he found that it had been managed very well. At the entrance of the valley, a large number of green spiritual trees were planted, growing lushly, which should be used to decorate the environment. In the valley, a large number of spiritual fields have been reclaimed, and next to the spiritual fields, a pond has been specially built, which contains clear spring water. The spring water is also covered by a set of spirit gathering array, which gathers the spiritual energy in the air into the spring water, so that the pool water contains weak spiritual energy, which can be used to irrigate the spiritual field. However, because the area of the valley is not large, the number of spiritual fields is not large. After all, only some spiritual grains are planted, which is just enough for a small family to eat. Behind the spiritual field, many ancient houses and buildings are built. They are not exquisite and magnificent, but just courtyards for ordinary cultivators to practice and live. Looking around, many clansmen come and go in it, a lively scene. Zhou Daocheng had previously understood the situation of the Qin family. In fact, there are still many of their clansmen. In Baihifeng City, there are many children and old people, about 40 to 50 people, which is also a relatively large family. At least more than the Zhou family, Wang family, and Xiaodan Pavilion. And they have a lot of strong people, a full 6 late-stage Qi refining cultivators, which is already very good. However, Zhou Daocheng had already ordered that only 2 9th-level Qi refining cultivators were allowed to move freely, and the other 4 were all to join the hunting team and the guard team. They had no objection to this, and for the better development of the family, they had to obey orders. As for the 2 Qin family cultivators who could move freely, they were Aunt Qin Muina, Hua, generation, Qin Wannian, who was considered Aunt Qin Mu's grandfather. The most prosperous of the entire Qin family was the Hua generation. Except for Qin Chuya, a foundation-building strongman, the Chu generation did not have many talented descendants. On the contrary, the Mu generation not only had Aunt Qin Mu, a second-level spiritual root cultivator, but also several third-level spiritual root descendants, a generation full of future. After Zhou Daocheng arrived, he looked around the valley and found that everything was normal, so he went directly to Aunt Qin Mu and Qin Wannian. In a relatively spacious house, the three sat opposite each other. Zhou Daocheng was calm, while Aunt Qin Mu and Qin Wannian opposite him seemed a little restrained. Now, Aunt Qin Mu has become the head of the Qin family. She is no longer dressed like a girl. She is dressed in a slightly mature way. Her long hair has been tied up, and she is graceful in her childishness. Don't worry, Senior Wugu. The expansion of Wugu market will also benefit us. Our Qin family will fully cooperate. Aunt Qin Mu nodded in a gentle voice and agreed. Zhou Daocheng nodded calmly and suddenly arranged. Your Qin family was once a big family. You should know the knowledge of the layout and construction of the market, right? Aunt Qin Mu did not answer, but looked at Qin Wannian on the side. After all, these things are not accessible to the younger generation. After a little thought, Qin Wannian said, I do know that 100 years ago, the older generation of the Qin family also participated in the construction of Baihei market, but we, the Qin family members who stayed, are not very proficient in this. It doesn't matter. You will cooperate with Elder Wei and participate in the construction of the market together. Zhou Daocheng arranged directly. It's better to leave it alone. Such hard labor is useless. Although the Qin family is not as good as before, its knowledge is still very deep. Of course, there is another point. Letting the Qin family participate more in the construction of Wugyufang City can also allow them to integrate faster and have more contact with other forces, which is also a good thing. After the explanation, Zhou Daocheng did not stay for long and left directly. It's just a small matter to check on the Qin family. Just make sure they are in good order and have no other messy thoughts. And he himself has more important things to prepare. He needs to transfer some monks, items, and resources to prepare for the third-level station in the 100 Insects Poison Swamp. But at the same time, he also needs to check the recent situation of Wugyufang City, which is also an important part of the development of the Zhou family. After checking the situation in the first valley and the second valley, he found that there is almost no vacant land now. In the first valley, all the shops in Wugu market have been sold or rented, and even some small stalls beside the streets are crowded with monks. In the second valley, the surrounding cliffs are covered with hundreds of caves of various sizes, all of which have been occupied by powerful monks or powerful forces. Including the spiritual fields in the valley, they are all divided. In the past, even if a 9th-level Qi refining cultivator appeared in Wugu market, it would attract the attention of many people. Because most of the 9th-level Qi refining cultivators are the managers of Wugu market. Or the bosses of forces such as Shaodan Pavilion, Wang family, and Zhou family, are members of hunting teams and hunting teams. In short, the number is very small. But now, more and more 9th-level foundation building masters appear in the market, and even foundation building masters often appear, including both independent cultivators and cultivators from various forces. While this brings development, it is also a great instability factor. Fortunately, Xie Zhouhei is here to guard and solve many problems. Even if he can't solve it, there is still Fu Qingya, who is at the 4th level of foundation building, who is enough to cover most of the things. It is worth mentioning that after solving the double snake tattoo, Fu Qingya went into seclusion directly and successfully broke through to the 4th level of foundation building. She is now the most powerful person in the entire Wugu market. But many people don't know her existence, and she almost never appears in front of the world. Only in very rare cases will she appear in secret. Seeing the changes in Wugu market, Zhou Daocheng was naturally very happy. The increase in the number of cultivators and the increase in strength means that the benefits that Wugu market can bring to a certain extent will increase. The only thing that needs to be done is to expand and strengthen defense to ensure order in the market. Moreover, with the substantial increase in the number of cultivators, one force was greatly affected, that is, the Shanghai Pavilion, established by Yuan Zhang. Zhou Daocheng walked on the street and saw a bustling large store from a distance. It was not 3 stories high, but more than 200 square meters. This is rarely seen in the micro market, and most of the stores are only 20 to 30 square meters. On the plaque of this store, there are 3 large gilded characters, simple and heavy, Shanghai Pavilion. The business here is better than that of Tianqi Shanju at night. There is a large flow of people coming and going. Most of them are independent cultivators who form teams, and even some teams of small forces are mixed in. Just a rough look, Zhou Daocheng knew that most of these teams were here to take on tasks. For any force and cultivator in the world of cultivation, it is not an easy thing to earn spirit stones, especially for weaker qi refining cultivators or small families of refining tools. They have no ability to run a shop, and cannot earn spiritual stones in the market, nor can they occupy a spiritual vein, so they cannot obtain spiritual stones through planting and breeding. As for more advanced immortal cultivation skills such as refining tools, refining pills, and making talismans, they are even more out of reach for them. Therefore, most of them can only hunt monsters, which is still a high-risk profession. If you are not careful, you will be in danger. In addition, you need to invest in the purchase of elixirs, magic tools, talismans, etc., and the income is not high. Therefore, when the Shanghai Pavilion appears, naturally many people will accept tasks to earn extra money and get more spiritual stones. Zhou Daocheng looked around and found that the strength of the teams coming in and out was also uneven. Some of the weaker ones, with only 5 or 6 people, are led by cultivators of the 7th or 8th level of qi refining. Such teams should only be able to accept some of the simplest tasks. Those with medium strength generally have more than a dozen people, and there are many cultivators in the late qi refining period in the team, and some even have a cultivator of the 9th level of qi refining. Zhou Daocheng didn't look at it for long, but walked directly into the Shanghai Pavilion and found Yuan Zhang to understand the situation directly. After all, no matter how hard he used his eyes, he couldn't see the specific situation of the Shanghai Pavilion. It was better to ask Yuan Zhang directly. Shanghai Pavilion was nominally established by Yuan Zhang, but secretly, he, the Lord of Fog Valley, was the real investor, so it was understandable to understand the situation. Yuan Zhang naturally told Zhou Daocheng everything he knew and introduced the recent development of Shanghai Pavilion. Zhou Daocheng knew that Shanghai Pavilion's business was not good at first, and the team of casual cultivators he formed himself had almost no tasks. After all, Shaodan Pavilion, Wang family, and Zhou family were just small families, and the demand was not much. Only in very rare cases, when they urgently needed certain materials, they would specifically look for casual cultivators to find them. But this situation only happened 2 or 3 times a year at most. So, how could Shanghai Pavilion have business? It has always been tepid. However, these small forces also gave Zhou Daocheng a lot of faith. Since they promised to take care of the business of Shanghai Pavilion, they were not just talking. So, they still issued some tasks. For example, Shaodan Pavilion issued several long-term tasks to purchase various spiritual medicines for first-level elixirs, almost as many as they could. And the Zhou family also issued tasks to purchase certain minerals and wood. The Wang family purchased talisman paper materials, talisman pen materials, and blood essence materials for drawing talismans. These things are materials that they each have a large demand for and are needed for a long time. As long as the quantity is not particularly large, they can almost eat them. Although these tasks are not very profitable, they helped Shanghai Pavilion to survive the earliest difficult period. It was not until later that Shanghai Pavilion gradually became more famous and slowly became known to everyone that it had some business. However, at the beginning, there were still only a few people who issued tasks, and more people still wanted to join the system of Shanghai Pavilion and accept tasks in exchange for spiritual stones. In this regard, Yuan Zhang was still resistant at first. After all, there were too many monks and too little meat. He hadn't eaten enough yet, so how could he share the benefits with others? But in the end, Yuan Zhang remembered Zhou Daocheng's explanation and told him that the purpose of Shanhaiguan was never to work for himself, but to build a platform. He should not focus on the small interests in front of him, but should look at the long term. So, in the end, Yuan Zhang still accepted these small teams of casual cultivators, so that the size of Shanhaiguan would be further increased. At this time, some powerful forces began to gradually emerge and began to issue some tasks. At the same time, some weaker families, shops, and forces also began to hire the team of Shanhaiguan to send resources to each other. In this process, there were actually many difficulties. After all, casual cultivators were not people who abided by the rules. When they saw that the escorted resources were expensive, they would rob them and steal from the inside. For this situation, the reputation accumulated by Shanhaiguan was almost completely destroyed, and its credibility plummeted, and its business was also in jeopardy. Helplessly, Yuan Zhang actually asked Xie Zhouhe directly to help him solve the matter. Xie Zhouhei had no reason not to help, and finally personally captured the thieves and brought them back alive to Wugu, beheading them in public as a warning to others. All the stolen resources were recovered, and a sum of spiritual stones was compensated, which allowed Shanghai Pavilion to regain its footing. This opportunity also completely established the reputation of Shanghai Pavilion. During this period, a large number of cultivators went to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp, and various forces gathered here. A large number of independent cultivators came to the vicinity of the Fog Valley, which brought a lot of business. During this period, the shops of all sizes in the Fog Valley marketplace made a lot of money, especially the small Dan Pavilion, Wang family, Zhou family, etc. that sold elixirs, talismans, and magic tools. Because the demand increased, it was urgent to purchase various materials, which also led to the business of the Shanghai Pavilion getting better and better. Under such an effect, more other forces began to issue tasks to the Shanghai Pavilion, including some foundation building forces that came from afar, leaving some people to stay in the Fog Valley and trying to establish a base here, which further promoted the development of the Shanghai Pavilion. Once more people issued tasks, more independent cultivators would join the mercenary team. This is when the Shanghai Pavilion officially rose. Many times, within a day, more than a dozen independent cultivator teams applied to join and wanted to become the permanent team of the Shanghai Pavilion. Faced with such a situation, Yuan Zhang not only did not let the interests get to his head, but he stopped very rationally and took the lead in improving the system of Shanghai Pavilion. When hearing this, Zhou Daocheng also looked at Yuan Zhang in surprise. He didn't expect that he looked carefree, but he actually had such a character. Seeing Zhou Daocheng's surprised and approving eyes, Yuan Zhang also scratched his head and explained with a smile, "Senior, it's really not me who is smart. It's just that I suddenly made a lot of money, and I felt a little scared, so I thought first be steady." With such a simple answer, Zhou Daocheng could only smile helplessly, but sometimes, that may be the case for being wise and foolish. How many people, faced with sudden wealth, can control their greed and choose to stop temporarily? At this moment, Zhou Daocheng finally made up his mind that it might be a good idea to let Yuan Zhang take charge of the Shanghai Pavilion. There is no need to be radical, there is no need to find ways to earn more spiritual stones, you just need to be steady and go down step by step. Tell me, what rules and regulations have you established? Zhou Daocheng asked with interest. Yuan Zhang was impatient again, but said in detail, "Actually, there are many aspects, but the most important one is the classification of levels." Zhou Daocheng guessed. Is it the difficulty level of the task? Yuan Zhang shook his head. Not only that, it includes 3 aspects, namely the employer's level, the mercenary team's level, and the final mission level. The employer level is calculated based on the spirit stones consumed in the process of assigning tasks. The more tasks you assign, the higher the difficulty, and the more spirit stones you pay, you can earn points, thereby improving your employer level. If there are delays in payment and non-compliance with the order, employer points will also be deducted. This is actually done to make it easier to identify which employer is more reliable when accepting tasks. After all, doing business is the choice of both parties. Zhou Daocheng nodded. He could see that Yuan Zhang was very attentive. This was an issue that he had not considered, but Yuan Zhang thought of everything and took action early. Task levels are actually easy to understand, that is, tasks of different difficulty are divided into different levels. The more difficult it is, the more spiritual stones you have to pay. Of course, the process of evaluating the difficulty of a task will not be decided by the employer, but will be personally evaluated by the people at Shanhaiguan. At present, Yuan Zhang and his wife Tang Rong are mainly responsible for this work. However, their abilities are limited, so they have also found some experienced elders from the Wang family and Zhou family to be responsible for the evaluation together. As for the last item, the hierarchical division of the employment team is actually the most important part. According to Yuan Zhang, all employment teams that join the Shanhaiguan system will also have a points system. The more tasks they take on, the higher the difficulty, the higher the degree of completion, and the more points they will earn. As the points increase, the level of the mercenary team will also increase. When you first join, all mercenary teams are temporary mercenary teams, with no guarantees and are only allowed to take on the simplest tasks. Moreover, Shanhaiguan will act as a middleman and take a large portion of the profits. However, when their level reaches a certain level and they are evaluated by Shanhaiguan, they will have the opportunity to be promoted to a permanent mercenary team, and be able to name their own team. The permanent mercenary team is also divided into levels. Now it is level 1 to 5 in total. It is not easy to upgrade. As a permanent mercenary team, their interests will be protected and they are qualified to take on more difficult tasks, and only a small part of the spiritual stones they obtain need to be handed over to the Shanghai Pavilion. These, permanent mercenary teams, are the main members of the Shanghai Pavilion. Zhou Daocheng nodded silently. This arrangement is very good, it can effectively manage all teams, and it also makes the entire Shanhaiguan system more reasonable. Zhou Daocheng asked, how many permanent mercenary teams are there in the Shanghai Pavilion now? What are the respective strengths? What level? Quote. Zhou Daocheng also wanted to see what level the Shanghai Pavilion has reached now and what kind of power it can mobilize. Yuan Zhang didn't say anything, but took out an animal skin from a box in the room and handed it directly to Zhou Daocheng. Said, Senior, the list of all temporary mercenary teams and permanent mercenary teams is here. You can take a look at it yourself. Zhou Daocheng was stunned. He didn't expect Yuan Zhang, a rough man, to do things so delicately. After carefully checking the information on the animal skin roll, I found that there were many names written on it, as well as the names of the mercenary team. They are roughly divided into two categories, temporary and permanent. There are many temporary mercenary teams, hundreds in total, but all teams that have received tasks are recorded in the book, and every name of the mercenary team members is also recorded in the book. In addition, there are permanent mercenary teams, the number of which is relatively small, only about 20, and the recorded information is also relatively detailed. Not only are the names of each member of the mercenary team, but also each member's level of strength, team level, team points, and team name. Among the 23 permanent mercenary teams, 17 are first-level hires, 5 are second-level hires, and 1 is third-level hires. Zhou Daocheng glanced around, sizing up these 6 second-level and third-level mercenary teams. These should be the 6 permanent mercenary teams with the highest comprehensive level in Shanghai Pavilion today, which also means the strongest strength. The 5 second-level permanent mercenary teams all have their own code names, namely, Shanghai, Wolf Fang, Spider Web, Blood Snake, Moon Dew, and Qingchuan. Among them, the Shanghai mercenary team and the Qingchuan mercenary team were both mercenary teams formed by Yuan Zhang himself. They were private combat forces and had been accepting missions, so their points were relatively high. As for the other 4 teams, they were all established by independent cultivators, and the strength of the team leaders reached the 9th level of Qi refining. The strongest Blood Snake mercenary team has 3 strong people of the 9th level of Qi refining. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but sigh. 1 or 2 years ago, when the Fog Valley market was just established, there were almost no powerful independent cultivators around. But after such a short time, so many powerful independent cultivators of the 9th level of Qi refining suddenly emerged. It was not easy. Although Zhou Daocheng could not directly control this force, he could issue tasks at critical moments to use their strength. For example, they could be asked to kill monsters, garrison in Fog Valley, etc., and the price was just to pay some spirit stones. Finally, Zhou Daocheng looked at the only third-level permanent mercenary team, code-named Wangquan. Zhou Daocheng raised his eyebrows. Taking Wangquan as the code name was not only overly arrogant, but also really had the ability. Yuan Zhang explained, Senior, this team is quite strong. There are only 6 members in total, and the weakest is at the 9th level of Qi refining. The leader is a casual cultivator who has reached the foundation establishment stage and is famous for his Wangquan swordsmanship. He has just come to Wugyufang City. Zhou Daocheng nodded and looked at the names in the team with a cautious expression. The leader was a very handsome man named Chen Qingshan. However, Zhou Daocheng still needs to pay special attention to this person. After all, his strength seems to be a little too strong. 1 foundation building powerhouse and 5 Qi refining 9th level powerhouses are equivalent to a small force that is not weak in strength, and is fully capable of founding a sect and establishing a family. Even if this person wants to join Wugyufang City, it is likely that he will be above Shaodan Pavilion and Wang family, and can be on an equal footing with Zhou family. How to deal with such a character is a big knowledge. Zhou Daocheng asked thoughtfully. Yuan Zhang, what is this person's personality like? How many levels of foundation building strength does he have? Yuan Zhang did not dare to answer casually. After thinking carefully, he said solemnly, I don't know the specific strength. It is probably in the early stage of foundation building, but he is calm and restrained. He is not a vicious person. His reputation is not bad. Such an answer surprised Zhou Daocheng. A casual cultivator who named his team, Huang Quan, turned out to be a person with a gentle personality. However, if you think about it carefully, the name of this person's mercenary team is entirely based on the Wangquan sword technique he uses, and may have nothing to do with his own personality. If this is really the case, maybe we can win over him and maybe absorb him into Wugu. Zhou Daocheng thought silently. If Wugyufeng City wants to expand, it is not just about expanding the area of the city, it also needs to strengthen its strength and increase its influence. Therefore, if more foundation building experts can join, it will definitely be of great benefit to future development. This Chen Qingshan allows him to join Wugyufeng City in a more independent way like Shaodan Pavilion and Wang family. Zhou Daocheng asked, "Where is this person now? Can you take me to see her? Senior Chen should be in Wugyufeng City. If you want to find him, I can take you there." Tianqi Shanju, Yage on the second floor. Zhou Daocheng looked at the middle-aged man in front of him with a calm expression. He was indeed a man with an ordinary appearance, a stable personality, and even an elegant temperament. Opposite me, Chen Qingshan looked at the person before him calmly, and couldn't help but secretly wonder, is this the legendary lord of the Foggy Valley? The bronze mask and purple robe are exactly the same as the rumors said. Out of politeness, Chen Qingshan took the lead and asked, "I have admired my name for a long time. I wonder if the Lord of Fog Valley is here to come to me this time. Does he have anything important to discuss with me?" Zhou Daocheng smiled, took a sip of tea, and asked, "It's nothing serious. I just heard that there is a strong foundation builder in Wugu, so I came here to see him. Judging from your demeanor, you must not have been a casual cultivator before, right?" Quote. The first time he saw this person, Zhou Daocheng found that he had an extraordinary bearing. His movements had the recklessness of a casual cultivator, but he was also more reserved and restrained. This is the behavior of descendants who grew up in family power. Chen Qingshan smiled and said nothing, and said with calm eyes, "There is no need to say more about the past. Now, Chen is just an ordinary monk in Wugyufeng City." Seeing that the other party was unwilling to say more, Zhou Daocheng no longer asked for details, but followed his words and asked, "Since my fellow Taoist has wandered here, are you willing to take root in Wugu?" Chen Qingshan answered directly and confirmed, "What do you mean? Can you explain it more clearly? Join Wugyufeng City, and I will give you a place to live. Whether it is building a force or developing a family, I can support you. You just need to help protect Fang City." Zhou Daocheng said what he meant straightforwardly and looked at Chen Qingshan with bright eyes. After a short period of contact, Zhou Daocheng knew that Chen Qingshan was not a person with a bad personality, but was indeed as calm and reserved as Yuan Zhang said. Chen Qingshan was startled and was speechless for a long time. He said with some hesitation, "To be honest with fellow Taoists, Chen doesn't want to be restrained. Just be a casual cultivator and be free from restraints." Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly, but still reminded, "I understand your concerns, but I will not restrict you too much. We are just a cooperative relationship. If you want to leave one day, just let me know." Chen Qingshan nodded slightly, as if he was still thinking about it. Zhou Daocheng continued, "Secondly, even if you don't think about yourself, you should think about other people who follow you, right? There is no end to the path of casual cultivation, and there is no way out. How can anyone really want to wander around for a lifetime without even returning home? There is no place. As soon as these words came out, they seemed to hit a sore spot in Chen Qingshan's face, and his expression changed slightly. This is a very simple statement, and it is also a true portrayal of the casual cultivator. How can there be a casual cultivator who is really willing to live in no fixed place and wander around for the rest of his life? Many powerful casual cultivators, after reaching the foundation building stage, will choose to occupy a spiritual vein, start a family, pass on to future generations, and become a force. Even if it is not for yourself, you must also consider for your descendants, leaving a stable place to thrive and develop. How could Chen Qingshan not understand these principles? Although he has no descendants, he does have several strong qi refiners following him. If he can make a decision and establish a family or power, many people will support him. Moreover, now that the Lord of Fog Valley is no longer in front of him and has fallen, this is the best opportunity. Chen Qingshan's breathing was slightly heavy and he asked, "Senior Wu Jiyu, if I choose to join, what kind of benefits can you support me?" Zhou Daocheng's lips curled up into a smile. At this point, the outcome was almost certain. He opened his mouth and said, "First of all, there is a place to live. I can prepare a valley for you. The spiritual energy concentration is at the second level of the lower grade. You can establish a family and power in it. How to deal with it is entirely up to you. Secondly, Wugyufang City is about to expand, and it should truly reach the scale of a small market. By then, I will leave you 3 sets of shops. Finally, you can participate in the management and supervision of Wugyufang City to a certain extent, which is equivalent to protecting the city, and you will receive a salary every year. I wonder if you are satisfied with these conditions. Zhou Daocheng showed his sincerity, giving land when he wanted, power when he wanted, but whatever the casual cultivator wanted, he gave it to him in one step. A trace of desire flashed in Chen Qingshan's eyes, which was equivalent to giving him a second-order low-grade spiritual vein, 3 shops in the small market, and the right to participate in the city's decision-making. This almost made him go from a casual cultivator directly to the management of this city, and his sincerity is not lacking. After thinking for a moment, Chen Qingshan seemed to have made up his mind, stood up directly, saluted, and said, Chen Qingshan is willing to join Wugyufang City, and I hope Senior Wugu will take care of him in the future. Zhou Daocheng hurriedly helped him up. You and I have similar cultivation levels. There is no need to call me senior. Just call me fellow Taoist Wugu. Thank you, fellow Taoist Wugu. Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly and said, since you have chosen to join, I should inform the others and choose a suitable valley for you. With the newcomers joining, Zhou Daocheng needs to inform others about this matter, especially the original management of Zhou family, Wang family, Qin family, Shaodan Pavilion, and Wei Hanshan. At the same time, Zhou Daocheng is also considering whether to prepare another valley for Zhou family, Wang family, and Shaodan Pavilion, so that they don't all squeeze in the cave of the second valley. Thinking of this, Zhou Daocheng notified Wei Hanshan and asked him to contact the leaders of these forces to come together to discuss this matter. A quarter of an hour later, Zhou Daoqi of the Zhou family, Bai Zuran, the leader of Shaodan Pavilion, Wang Jinei, the head of the Wang family, Qin Mui, the head of the Qin family, and Wei Hanshan all gathered in Tianqi Shanju. Grand gatherings like this rarely occur, so the leaders of several forces are very cautious, and of course they are also curious. However, when they saw Chen Qingshan, they vaguely guessed the general situation. As a powerful force in Wugu market, they naturally knew about the appearance of this foundation building expert, and even tried to win him over secretly. Now, this person appeared next to the Lord of Wugu. What does this mean? Everyone knows in their hearts. And what Zhou Daocheng said next also confirmed their guesses. Zhou Daocheng said calmly, I called you all here this time, only one important thing to announce. From now on, fellow Taoist Chen Qingshan officially joins Wugu, and his status is equal to that of you. I hope everyone can live in peace and help each other. Several people looked at Zhou Daocheng in amazement. They didn't expect that the Lord of Wugu had just returned a few days ago and successfully persuaded this foundation building expert. You know, before, they offered a lot of benefits and tried to make friends with this senior Chen, but the effect was not good. Now that the matter has been settled, several family heads also congratulated one after another. However, this is just a notification. This is to call everyone over, and there is another important thing to inform. Zhou Daocheng said, everyone has joined Wugu market. It should have been a long time. Wang Jinei nodded and said, indeed, it has been almost 3 years. Zhou Daocheng was also in a trance. He didn't expect time to pass so quickly. Wugu market has been in existence for 3 years. It is true that there is no time in cultivating immortals. A thought seems to be a lifetime away. In the past 3 years, you have also made great contributions to the development of the market. As the master of Wugu, I still want to thank everyone present for this. Zhou Daocheng looked at everyone with a smile. Bai Zuran hurriedly said, I dare not, my Shaodan Pavilion can develop again, thanks to the protection of Senior Wugu. We should thank the senior. Yes, my Wang family can get revenge and be reborn at the weakest moment, all thanks to the senior. Wang Jinei echoed. On the side, Zhou Daoqi saw this and felt that he seemed to have something to say. He was busy brewing his emotions. Just as he was about to speak, he was glared back by Zhou Daocheng. It would be fine if that person said such sensational words. We are all family members, there is really no need to discuss each other. Zhou Daocheng said, I called everyone here, and I have only one good news to tell you. I plan to prepare a valley for each of your forces as a trace of future development. From now on, you don't need to squeeze into the cave house in the second valley. You can practice and live in your own valley and cultivate spiritual fields. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned and listened in a daze. Zhou Daocheng continued, even if you have the ability, I will allow you to further expand your power. The family can recruit guests and the sect can recruit disciples. As long as you don't break the rules of the market, I will not restrict you. Several forces felt like a pie fell on their heads and were dizzy. What has been the most lacking all along? It must be the space for survival and development. For them, it is just a cave house of 100 square meters in the second valley, which is just enough for the family's practice and life. Even with the expansion of the family, this small cave can no longer accommodate so many people. If there is no larger territory, then they have no room for development, let alone absorbing outsiders. But what they didn't expect was that Zhou Daocheng helped them solve all the problems at once. This, Senior Wugu really said it. Zhou Daocheng raised his eyebrows and confirmed, of course. Then, Zhou Daocheng no longer hesitated and led everyone to leave Tianqi Shanju and came to the mountains behind the market. The rest of the people followed closely, unable to hide their excitement. Arriving in the vast mountains behind, Zhou Daocheng began to choose a suitable place for them to stay. Now, there are 4 independent valleys. They are the Spiritual Medicine Garden, located in the north of the market, and the Spiritual Beast Garden, located in the south of the market. The Qin Family Valley is located in the southeast of the market, almost behind the second valley. Xie Zhouhei's Valley is located at the easternmost part of the entire Wugu Mountains, close to the eastern border. Now, we need to select 4 more valleys, which will be given to Shaodan Pavilion, Wang Family, Zhou Family and Chen Qingshan respectively. As for the location, Zhou Daocheng thought about it again and still chose the area near Qin Family Valley, which is close to the market. These forces often go to the market on weekdays and mainly rely on the market for survival, so it is not suitable to be left in the mountains behind. So, Zhou Daocheng arranged 4 valleys in a row behind the second and third valleys. The location was just parallel to the Qin Family Valley, and the 3 valleys in the center were in a semicircle. Each valley was of similar size and environment, and the concentration of spiritual energy was all raised to the lower level of the second order, but it gave them the possibility of breaking through the foundation. And in each valley, a road leading to the market was built to facilitate their daily entry and exit. Such an arrangement also made several forces very satisfied. Bai Zuran and Wang Jinei were even more tearful. They had all experienced a great disaster and fled to the Fog Valley after their forces were destroyed. They were no different from the dogs of the previous family. But now, they have their own base again, and there is also a lower level of spiritual energy in the second order. Only they can understand the bitterness in their hearts. Chen Qingshan was also excited, looking at this brand new valley with emotion, surrounded by green shade, with a flat internal terrain and a superior environment. But he was more impressed by the ability of the Lord of Fog Valley. He had just seen with his own eyes that the Lord of Fog Valley changed the terrain with a thought and built a valley with supreme power. This powerful ability made him doubt whether the other party was in the early stage of foundation building. They were in the same realm, so why was there such a big difference in ability? But more of it was surprise and admiration. It was so easy to build a station, and there was a powerful formation guarding it, which made him see the bright future of Wugu Market. Next, several forces began to move their stations, and move their clansmen, resources, and wealth to their own valleys, with a lively atmosphere. Taking this opportunity, Zhou Daocheng also took action directly, using the formation to change the terrain of Wugu Market, expanding it by about 5 times, forming a valley with a very large area. The originally extremely crowded market suddenly became spacious, and the cultivators in the entire market were also very surprised to see this scene. Zhou Daocheng also announced the news of the upcoming expansion of the market in front of everyone, which was considered to be a complete confirmation of the matter. Wei Hanshan was fully responsible for this matter, and Shaodan Pavilion, Wang Family, Zhou Family, Qin Family, and Chen Qingshan, who moved to the valley, fully cooperated to relay out and build Wugu Market. Such a big move immediately caused the entire market to boil, with both excitement and worry. The excitement lies in the expansion of the market, which will inevitably bring a better environment and more benefits. But at the same time, they are also worried about whether their original shops can be retained after the market expands. They are still over-worrying about these things. Once the market expands 4 to 5 times, the land will become very spacious. Zhou Daocheng will naturally not squeeze the living space of existing shops, but will support their development more. But he naturally cannot explain these words to everyone in person, and can just leave it to Wei Lao to arrange. Now, Zhou Daocheng took advantage of the busyness of the entire market and also had a general understanding of the existing combat power. Now the strength of the Wugu market has increased significantly. If you count carefully, you will suddenly find that the number of foundation building masters has reached 6. They are Zhou Daobai, Xie Zhouhei, Fu Qingye, the queen of the purple armored swallowing spirit ants, Chen Qingshan, and himself. The number of 9th level Qi refining masters has also increased significantly. In the Wugu market system, there are 6 captains of the guard team and 5 captains of the hunting team, including Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan, and Wei Hanshan, who is in charge of everything. Zhou Daocheng also has many 9th level Qi refining cultivators under his command, such as Bai Cholan, Huang Long, Wu Shangling, Wan Yang, Xiao Lan, Qin Lai, Zhao Yunji, Tibei Barbarian Bear, and more than a dozen purple armored swallowing spirit ants with the strength equivalent to the 9th level Qi refining. The Zhou family has 2 9th level Qi refining masters, Zhou Daoqi and Zhou Shuhai. 2 from Shaodan Pavilion, 3 from Wang family, 6 from Qin family, 1 from Shanhai Pavilion, and 5 from Chen Qingshan. In total, there are nearly 50 9th level Qi refining cultivators. Of course, a large number of them are actually hiding in the dark and don't show their strength easily. For example, Qin Lai, Ironback Barbarian Bear, Bai Cholan, Huang Long, Wu Shangling, Wan Yang, Xiao Lan, Purple Armor Devouring Spirit Ant, the Wang family and the cultivators who just broke through the Shaodan Pavilion, etc. It must be said that the power of the entire Wugu market has indeed been expanding in the past 2 years, and it has truly possessed the foundation of a small market. But among this batch of combat power, some need to be transferred to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp. For the foundation building strongman, the eldest brother Zhou Daobai can be arranged to go there. After all, it is the Zhou family's residence, and he is not at ease to let others go. But there is another candidate who is very suitable, that is, to let Fu Qingye go. On the one hand, Fu Qingye's identity needs to be hidden. Once the people of the secret talisman palace discover her whereabouts, the consequences will inevitably be very troublesome. What's more, not only is Fu Qingye's identity dangerous, but even Zhou Daocheng himself has a red snake on his body, which is equivalent to directly destroying the secret talisman palace's arrangements for many years. The hatred is not small. Therefore, even after Zhou Daocheng had the red snake tattoo, he actually did not dare to use the red snake's ability easily, for fear of being discovered by the people of the secret talisman palace. On the other hand, Fu Qingye's strength is strong enough. She is the only strong person in the entire Wugyufang city who has reached the middle stage of foundation building. It is obviously more valuable to let her go to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp. But whether to go or not, the specific situation still needs to ask Fu Qingye's own opinion. However, when Zhou Daocheng stood at the entrance of the third valley, he hesitated for a while and scratched his head helplessly. Since that night, he left directly without even meeting Fu Qingye, which was really irresponsible. He only came to bother her when he had something to do. It was a typical scumbag behavior, and even he himself couldn't stand it. But on second thought, he didn't go out to play, but worked hard for the development of power. Men who work hard for their careers are the most attractive. After coughing twice, Zhou Daocheng walked into the valley. As soon as he reached the entrance of the cave, a cold voice came, "Come to me if you have anything to say." The voice was as cold as 1,000-year-old ice, and Zhou Daocheng couldn't help shivering. "Ahem, I have something to talk to you about. Can you come in? Let's talk outside." After being ruthlessly rejected, Zhou Daocheng touched his nose helplessly, stood outside honestly, and asked, "My Zhou family found a spiritual vein in the 100 Insects Poison Swamp, and plans to build a new station there. I hope you will go there to guard it." "No, get out." The 3 emotionless words spit out made Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, but this was really like Fu Qingye's character. He has discovered that this woman is definitely a stay-at-home girl. She stays in the cave every day and doesn't go out. She seems a little lazy. However, Zhou Daocheng did not give up and said, "That is the 3rd level spiritual vein, which is more suitable for you to practice in seclusion, and the location is deep in the 100 Insects Poison Swamp, which is very safe." For Fu Qingye, there are 2 things she desires most. The first is the practice environment. Only a better practice environment can help her reach a higher level. The gap between the 3rd level spiritual vein and the 2nd level spiritual vein is not small, which can make the practice speed differ by several times. She will definitely be tempted. The second is safety. Although it is not clear what the conflict between her and the secret symbol palace is, it must be a fight to the death. So, Fu Qingye will definitely not let go of a safe enough station. So after more than 10 seconds, a voice came from the cave. "Okay, then I'll give you face and go to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp." Zhou Daocheng was helpless. The speed of changing his mind was indeed fast enough, and he was justified and did not change his face. Not long after, Fu Qingye walked out of the cave, still wearing a red outfit that outlined her charming figure. Her eyes were cold and indifferent. She just glanced at Zhou Daocheng and asked, "When are you leaving?" "In these few days, I'll make some preparations and then set off." Zhou Daocheng replied, then took a look at Fu Qingye's clothes and suddenly asked, "You wore red clothes when you used the red snake tattoo, and now you use the ice snake tattoo, shouldn't you wear blue?" After the voice fell, Fu Qingye gritted her silver teeth, her temples throbbed slightly, and she said speechlessly, "Did I change a set of clothes just to satisfy your bad taste?" "Ah, not really." Zhou Daocheng spread his hands in self-indulgence. But what he didn't expect was that Fu Qingye actually explained it seriously. "I made a lot of red clothes before, and it would be a waste not to wear them. If I have the chance, I can change to another one in the future." Zhou Daocheng then remembered that Fu Qingye's clothes would be burned every once in a while, so he naturally prepared a lot of clothes. But now it seems that there is no end to wear. After casually chatting for a few words, Fu Qingye suddenly asked, "Besides me, who else goes to 100 Insect Poison Marsh?" Zhou Daocheng thought for a while and replied, "Me, my eldest brother, and some strong men at the 9th level of Qi refining." Hearing this, Fu Qingye frowned and asked, "You will only leave one strong foundation building expert to guard Fang City. You too, a new foundation building monk has joined us in the past few days. You just joined Fangxi, and you dared to hand over Fangxi's management to him. Aren't you afraid of him secretly causing trouble?" Fu Qingye asked with a frown. Zhou Daocheng just chuckled and said, "This person is only at the first level of foundation building, and his strength is comparable to Xie Zhouhei. I gave Wei Hanshin a spiritual puppet formation, which is equivalent to 2 strong foundation building warriors, which is enough to deal with most of the time. If this person was on the 2nd or 3rd floor of the foundation building, Zhou Daocheng really wouldn't dare to arrange it like this. However, if it is only one level of foundation building, the threat is not very great, because the spirit puppet array can be used to prevent danger to a large extent." Hearing that Zhou Daocheng had already made arrangements, Fu Qingye nodded. Next, Zhou Daocheng went directly to the Spirit Beast Garden, planning to go back and sort out the resources that needed to be transported to the 100 Insect Poison Marsh. Halfway through, he realized that Fu Qingye had been following him. He was a little confused and asked, "Why are you following me? You're not leaving now." Fu Qingye glanced at him and said, "Can't I go to the Spirit Beast Park?" Well, Zhou Daocheng was speechless for a moment, but immediately after, Fu Qingye's next words made his expression suddenly change. "Moreover, little friend Zhao Yunji and I are pretty good friends, but we haven't seen her for a while." Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Zhou Daocheng's face turned green, he couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth, and asked, "You know each other?" Fu Qingye raised her eyebrows, smiled secretly, and said calmly, "I just met you not long ago, and I heard that she has a good relationship with you. She often treats you as a master and apprentice, teaching you skills and solving doubts." "Gee, I didn't expect you to have an apprentice. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Zhou Daocheng's face turned dark at that time, and he secretly wondered why Zhao Yunji said anything. Isn't there any privacy at all? Seeing that Fu Qingye was going too far, Zhou Daocheng quickly stopped him and whispered, "That's enough for you. It would be rude to say any more." Fu Qingye smacked her lips but did not continue. The two of them went to the spiritual beast garden together. From a distance, they saw the lush green valley with many first-level spiritual fruit trees planted. The environment was very beautiful. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that Zhao Yunji took good care of the box. Zhao Yunji is wearing a green suit, with long hair tied up, casually throwing rice to the white-feathered rooster, restoring the tranquil and indifferent scene, which makes people's souls unable to help but feel at peace. Isn't such a plain and leisurely life of cultivating immortals what every cultivator longs for? Rich spiritual energy, shrouded in clouds and mist, planting a spiritual field, raising some spiritual birds in captivity, and having spiritual beasts guarding the valley is definitely a dream life. It can be seen that the number of white-feathered spiritual chickens has expanded a lot. The original 50 square meter chicken pen has expanded to more than 300 square meters, and the number of spiritual birds has reached more than 100. You can also see a big white snake, with its head raised, looking at the chicken coop eagerly, drooling at whoever made the white-feathered chicken's thigh. It was the mirage python that had grown up. With a little sense, he knew that the strength of this big snake had reached the middle stage of the first level. When Zhou Daocheng arrived, Zhao Yunji noticed it easily and looked over, but when he saw the two figures, there was obviously a hint of resentment deep in his eyes. But it only passed by for a moment, and calmness soon returned. Zhou Daocheng didn't say much, he just hoped that time would calm down everything. Looking at Zhao Yunji, he said, Yunji, the Zhou family's headquarters will be transferred to Baichong Poison Marsh. Will you come with me then? Zhao Yunji's eyes moved and he asked, have you discovered a new spiritual vein? Not bad, it's level 3, the environment is better. However, after Zhao Yunji thought for a moment, he shook his head and said, I won't pass. My strength has just reached the peak of the 9th level of foundation building. I still need further training. The environment in Wugyufang City is more suitable for me. What's more, the spiritual beast garden and the spiritual medicine garden also need someone to take care of them. There are also Daoyuan Daosho and his 4 children, who are definitely more suitable to stay in Wugyufang City for training, and they also need someone to take care of them. Zhao Yunji is not a flower vase. He has his own clear goals and ideas and made a decision immediately. She is not like Fu Qingye at all, who just goes with the flow and is a little heartless. However, the issues she considers are indeed important. Relatively speaking, the 3rd level spirit stone veins in 100 Insect Poison Marsh are a very safe rear area, suitable for clan land and the foundation for development. However, it is not suitable for young people to venture into, because the environment there is too safe, there is no danger, and there is no contact with other monks. Therefore, relatively speaking, Wugyufang City is more suitable for wandering, more suitable for experience and self-improvement, being able to deal with monks and forces from all sides, and it is also easier to make progress. Whether it is Zhao Yunji, Zhou Daocheng, or Zhou Daosho, Zhou Daoyuan and others, they are more suitable to stay in Wugyufang City. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng did not persuade me too much, I just nodded and agreed. After thinking for a moment, he took out a box from the storage bag and handed it to Zhao Yunji. This is. Looking at the exquisite box, Zhao Yunji guessed the items in it, but she was still a little uncertain. Zhou Daocheng said directly, Foundation pill, you have accumulated enough, and you are extremely talented, try to break through. However, Zhao Yunji frowned slightly, and said hesitantly, I heard that my 4th brother was able to refine a 2nd-level magic weapon when he was in the chi refining stage. He should be more suitable than me. Zhou Daocheng smiled and said, Don't worry, I have my own arrangements with my 4th brother. This foundation pill belongs to you, just prepare for a breakthrough. Hearing this, Zhao Yunji was stunned, and seemed to understand something, so she stopped refusing, and took the foundation pill with excitement, her hands were shaking slightly. She thought that with her 2nd spiritual root talent, there was indeed a high probability that she would not need a foundation pill, and could directly break through the foundation with her own ability. But because the risk was too high, she had never tried it. As a result, she actually got a foundation pill now, which was really beyond her expectation. Okay, I'll take the foundation pill. I'm going to prepare and start a breakthrough soon. Zhou Daocheng nodded, and secretly, he quietly unlocked the spiritual secrets in Zhao Yunji's mind. The moment she felt the changes in her mind, Zhao Yunji's body trembled, and then continued to walk into the cave, and began to retreat to prepare for a breakthrough. After many years of companionship, Zhou Daocheng chose to believe her. No matter how strong the control of the spiritual secrets was, there was still a way to crack it. Years of affection may be far more solid than spiritual secrets. On the side, Fu Qingye still looked calm, and said casually, I will go to guide, the probability of breakthrough should be increased. Okay, thank you for your trouble. After waiting for the two of them, Zhou Daocheng wandered around the spirit beast garden alone, checking the things that were suitable to be brought to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp. In fact, there are not many things that need to be brought. After all, most of the time in the future, they should still stay in the Fog Valley, because this is the focus of development. Only some extremely valuable things that need to be hidden and protected will be transferred there, but there are obviously not many such things. For example, in the entire spiritual beast garden, there are only 3 spiritual beasts, the white-feathered spiritual chicken, the mirage cloud python, and the purple-armored swallowing spiritual ant. If you want to say which spiritual beast must be taken to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp, there is actually no such thing. The quality of the white-feathered spiritual chicken is indeed good, and it can harvest 3 materials, spiritual eggs, spiritual chicken meat, and feathers. Although these 3 items are valuable, they are not necessarily very precious. On weekdays, some are eaten by themselves, some are transported to Tianqi Shanju, and the rest will be sold in exchange for spiritual stones. However, if it is transported to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp, it can only be used for personal consumption, which is equivalent to losing a sum of spiritual stones, and it is also easy to cause waste. What's more, in the 100 Insects Poison Swamp, similar spiritual birds can actually be found, and they may be of higher quality, so there is no need to raise the white-feathered spiritual chicken. It doesn't matter whether it is placed in the Fog Valley or the 100 Insects Poison Swamp. It doesn't have much impact on its growth. Strictly speaking, the current Mirage Cloud Python is more of a pet, with weak strength and not particularly high potential, but it looks very cute and has a gentle personality. However, it will take a lot of time for it to break through to the late stage of the first stage, at least 6 or 7 years, but that is without taking the soul-feeding pill. As for breaking through to the second stage, there is no need to think about it. Unless Zhou Daocheng sends it a wisp of innate purple energy, the probability of its breakthrough should not be very high. Finally, there are the purple armored soul-devouring ants. Zhou Daocheng also does not plan to take them to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp because it is really inappropriate. If you have to send them there, then where the ant colony will settle down becomes a very troublesome problem. Could it be on the island? Although the island where this third-level spirit stone vein is located is not small, it can't withstand the purple armored soul-swallowing ant colony digging holes every day. Now it is just a second-stage early-stage ant colony, with a relatively small scale. Once it develops to the middle or late stage of the second stage, the scale of the ant colony will increase exponentially, and the entire island may be directly hollowed out. This kind of thing, Zhou Daocheng feels a headache just thinking about it. As for releasing them in the 5-colored miasma, it is also not a good method. The 5-colored miasma is likely to have an effect on the purple armored swallowing spirit ants, and it is difficult for them to survive in it. Therefore, it is better to keep them in the Wugu market, which has an excellent development environment and can also assist in clearing the monsters that invade the Wugu mountains. It is a strong fighting force. In this way, the Spirit Beast Garden does not need too much arrangement, and it can still be done as usual. Then there is the Spiritual Medicine Garden, where a large number of crops are planted, including purple jade spirit rice, moon grass, red fierce flower, yellow thorn vine, black puppet wood, and purple air green spirit bamboo. These crops have different qualities, but they all bring a lot of benefits and are of great significance. However, when it comes to which ones need to be transferred to the 100 Insects Poison Swamp, Zhou Daocheng chose purple jade spirit rice and purple air green spirit bamboo after careful consideration. Why choose purple jade spirit rice? The most important reason is that the quality of this spirit rice is high enough, reaching the second level lower grade. Moreover, the energy contained in the spiritual rice is also very mild. Even cultivators in the qi refining stage can eat it and gain great benefits. Another point is that if the purple jade spiritual rice is planted on a large scale, there is a chance that the second level middle grade purple jade spiritual rice will appear. In the past few years of planting, several second level spiritual rice grains have successfully appeared. Zhou Daocheng has collected all of them and plans to try to cultivate the second-level middle-grade purple jade spiritual rice. So this time, he brought the second-level lower-grade and second-level middle-grade seeds to the 100 Insect Poison Swamp with a better environment for cultivation. Zhou Daocheng also plans to take the purple air green spiritual bamboo with him in the end. This extremely precious spiritual plant has great value in itself and can release spiritual energy continuously. Once the scale is expanded, its value is no less than that of the spiritual vein land. However, it is a waste to put it in the spiritual medicine garden, because the spiritual energy here is completely sufficient, and there is no need to put the purple air green spiritual bamboo here. It will be better to transport it to the 100 Insect Poison Swamp to further enhance the environment of the Zhou family land as a major foundation. By the way, Zhou Daocheng checked the purple spirit bamboo again. There were 18 bamboos clustered together, lush and vigorous, growing extremely vigorously. Among them, the one with the highest quality reached the peak of the second-level middle grade, and was not far from the second-level upper grade. This was the earliest purple spirit bamboo. There were also 4 second-level lower grade ones, whose quality was also greatly improved, and the spiritual energy they released was also slightly enhanced, but the growth rate was much slower than the first one. Finally, there were 13 purple air green spirit bamboos of only first-grade quality, surrounded by a faint purple air, and the breath of life was also very strong. Zhou Daocheng took action directly and dug out the 18 purple air green spirit bamboos together. Because the rhizomes were connected together, a large piece was dug out. After wrapping the rhizomes with spiritual soil, they were directly stuffed into the storage bag. As long as they are not kept in the storage bag for a long time, the purple air green spirit bamboo will not be affected too much, so Zhou Daocheng also needs to get on the road as soon as possible and return to the 100 insects poison swamp as soon as possible. But before that, two other things need to be taken away: resources and monks. In terms of resources, there are many expensive treasures in the underground treasure house, which are accumulated by Zhou Daocheng over the years, such as the harvest in the Fire Dragon Gate treasure house, the Qin family assets, and the precious resources collected in the Fog Valley market. However, considering that the Fog Valley market also needs a lot of resources, Zhou Daocheng only took a part of them, the resources of the Qin family of Xian Pavilion. Zhou Daocheng obtained some resources from the corpse, and his elder brother Zhou Daobai escorted the Qin family back to obtain a large amount of resources, and then completely confiscated the Qin family's property in Baihifang City. Therefore, almost all of the Qin family's accumulation over hundreds of years fell into Zhou Daocheng's hands. The Qin family of Xian Pavilion is a family of the nature of a chamber of commerce, mainly engaged in business, so the wealth they have is even greater than other families of the same level. Second-level magic weapons, elixirs, talismans, monster materials, and precious treasures emerged one after another, but Zhou Daocheng did not dare to take them out easily because the Qin family had joined Wugu. To avoid the exposure of what happened at that time, Zhou Daocheng had to hide something. Especially the second-level magic weapons have relatively distinctive characteristics. Zhou Daocheng plans to sell them all, or directly exchange them for other magic weapons. So far, Zhou Daocheng has not used the wealth of the Qin family. This time it happened to be all transported to the new residence of Baichongdu Marsh for future development in Donglinfang City. It can be imagined that Donglinfang City is a large city with prosperous trade and is surrounded by a large number of foundation building families. If you want to develop there, funds are absolutely indispensable. Therefore, this batch of resources can just be used as the Zhou family's startup capital. As for other resources, Zhou Daocheng stayed in Foggy Valley. After all, this place also needed development. The last step is the monk's choice. Zhou Daocheng has already planned for this. He only needs to take away 5 people: Bai Cholan, Huang Long, Wu Shangling, Wan Yang, and Xiao Lan. After making all preparations, Zhou Daocheng and I immediately planned to hit the road and rush back to the 100 insect poison swamp as soon as possible. I didn't even have time to wait for Zhao Yunji to break through the foundation building, let alone wait for Fangxi to be completed now. But when he finally left, he still met with his fourth brother Zhou Daoqi, asked some questions, and explained some things. In the Foggy Valley Mountains, in a hidden mountain road, Zhou Daocheng asked, "Fourth brother, are you really able to refine a second-level magic weapon at the 9th level of qi refining?" With a simple and honest smile, Zhou Daoqi touched his round belly and said with a smile, "So, my understanding of weapon refining skills has indeed reached the 2nd level. It's just that my spiritual energy and spiritual consciousness are too high. Ida-S weak, so Ida-S difficult to refine a 2nd-level magic weapon. I see, then brother's bone sword." Zhou Daoqi didn't hide anything and said directly, "Hey, I refined it for him. Isn't it powerful enough? I spent a lot of effort and used some special methods to successfully refine it." Zhou Daocheng looked at his fourth brother in surprise. "Did you use any special means?" It may seem like a light sentence, but it carries great weight in Zhou Daocheng's eyes, and it must contain a lot of Zhou Daoqi's hard work. He is also an array master, so he understands even more how difficult it is to have 2nd-level immortal cultivation skills during the qi refining stage. Even he himself could only rely on the spirit puppet formation to barely touch the level of the 2nd level, but he was unable to actually deploy the 2nd-level formation. Because whether it is the total amount of spiritual energy, the understanding of the formation patterns, or the mental energy required to arrange it, it is far beyond what the 9th level of qi refining can bear. Because of this, he was so amazed at fourth brother's methods. As for what kind of method the other party used, Zhou Daocheng didn't ask. It might be a technique similar to melting array. But he never imagined that his current negligence would cause his fourth brother Zhou Daoqi to suffer some irreparable harm one day in the future because of this special method. How can any means of seizing the creation of heaven and earth be completely harmless? Benefiting others and harming oneself is perhaps the best portrayal of this method. Zhou Daocheng didn't ask any more questions, but took out a box from his arms and stuffed it into Zhou Daoqi's hand. This is. Zhou Daoqi looked surprised. Zhou Daocheng smiled and said, as you thought, foundation building pill. Zhou Daoqi was stunned and caught the box with his big fleshy hands. He didn't regain his senses for a long time. After a long time, he sighed and said with excitement, "Sixth brother, I didn't expect that the person who can really make the Zhou family rise is not my eldest brother, nor me, but you." Zhou Daocheng waved his hand. "Fourth brother, there is no need to say this. Without the eldest brother to break through the foundation in time, it would be difficult for me to withstand so many dangers with my own ability. And fourth brother, your weapon refining methods are also indispensable, but Zhou Daocheng the confidence of our family to rise again." Zhou Daoqi nodded solemnly and said, "Sixth brother, don't worry, as long as I am here, the Zhou family will not lack powerful magic weapons." Ha ha ha, okay, I believe it will happen. When the fourth brother successfully breaks through the foundation building stage, I will have to trouble the fourth brother to refine the natal magic weapon. Zhou Daocheng said with a smile, and then gave another instruction. By the way, fourth brother, Zhao Yunji is currently making a breakthrough and is being guarded by a senior foundation builder. You just happen to go over and break through together. By the way, tell the senior foundation builder that he will be watching over you. After the breakthrough is over, just go to the poisonous poison swamp. Zhao Yunji and Zhou Daoqi's breakthrough needs someone to watch after all, and Fu Qingye is the best candidate. As for going to the 100 insect poison swamp, it is not a matter of urgency. After they succeed in breaking through, it will not be too late for Fu Qingye to go to the 100 insect poison swamp to find Zhou Daocheng. After the explanation, Zhou Daocheng took Bai Cholan, Huang Long, Wu Shangling, Wan Yang, Xiaolan and others on the road. White Scale Lake. The former head of the family, Zhou Changyi, could not help but tremble with his legs in the wheelchair as he listened to Zhou Daobai's report. Deep in the 100 insect poison swamp, there are third-level spirit stone veins, the awakening tea tree, and the spiritual longevity tree. No matter what item is picked out alone, it is a priceless treasure. It has been acquired by the Zhou family today and has become one of the treasures. And several juniors of the Zhou family have finally grown up in the past few years and truly become strong men who can support the future of the Zhou family. Zhou Daobai said, "Grandpa, I came back this time to bring all the clan members to the third-level station in the 100 insects poison swamp. We will develop there in the future, and the Zhou family will start over." Good, good, good. Zhou Chengyi said 3 good words in a row, and said excitedly, "Just do it according to your ideas. We, the old generation, will enjoy the good life with you." Zhou Daobai nodded and said seriously, "However, which specific people will migrate there and what resources they need to bring, all of these will still be arranged by you, Grandpa. Don't worry, although I am old, I can still handle these small matters. Just leave it to me. By the way, Daobai, do you want to go back to Shenline Mountain, where the Zhou family mortals?" Speaking of the Zhou family mortals in Shenline Mountain, Zhou Chengyi's old face was full of disappointment and sorrow. That was the past that the Zhou family members were most reluctant to face. In order to develop better and not expose their identities, they left a full 20,000 Zhou family mortals in Shenline Mountain. Later, they sent people back to check the situation and found that the tribesmen had not been attacked by outsiders, but they were still not living well. They were just mortals, but there were a large number of powerful monsters living around them. Whenever a monster broke into the village, it would be a disaster. Therefore, in a short period of time, the number of mortals was still greatly reduced, and many people died from attacks by monsters. In order to ensure their safety, Zhou Daocheng later sent some formations, which were all fusion formations that incorporated spirit gathering formations and did not require the input of spiritual energy in the future. Moreover, it mainly consists of mazes to conceal their whereabouts and defensive formations to defend against monsters. On the one hand, it can prevent external monsters from entering, and on the other hand, it can also trap the mortals in it to prevent them from accidentally walking out. In this way, it can be regarded as creating a relatively safe area for them. As long as there is no strong foundation builder deliberately looking for it, few people can find them. Zhou Daobai originally planned to go to check, but now after being reminded by Zhou Chengyi, he also took advantage of the situation and said, "Don't worry, uncle, I originally planned to go over and have a look. If there are monks with spiritual roots, I can bring them back. And the sixth brother has I refined a few formations and just happened to bring them with me. That's good. When the Zhou family rises again in the future, we must bring back these old people. Our Zhou family. I'm sorry to them." As he spoke, Zhou Changyi couldn't help but burst into tears. Compared with Zhou Daocheng and Zhou Daobai of the younger generation, Zhou Changyi has deeper feelings for these mortals. Because among these mortals, there are too many figures that he is familiar with. For example, among the sons he gave birth to, the first 4 had no spiritual roots, and they were all sent to mortal villages in the end. Although they were different from immortals to mortals, they would still go there to check on them every year or festival. Therefore, there are not just ordinary mortals there, but also relatives of the same bloodline as the Zhou family's immortal cultivators. Among them are Zhou Daocheng's parents and uncles. But because he has lived in the Zhou family fairy clan since he was a child, his relationship with his mortal relatives is relatively weak, and many of them were killed or injured in the migration in previous years. It is precisely because of this that Zhou Changyi misses these old people so much. Zhou Daobai also looked sad, nodded and said, "Okay, I will go back and take a look." The two sides acted independently, and Zhou Daobai took the Qingfeng shuttle and headed to the deep forest mountain as quickly as possible. As for Balin Lake, Zhou Changyi quickly started to take care of things. Daobai said that there is also an island in the middle of the lake. It just happens to collect the waterproof ores mined over the years and put them all in storage bags. There are also those collected over the years. The spiritual rice, pickled white-scaled sea bass, and green-bearded spiritual shrimp were all taken out for me. Zhou Changyi arranged everything in an orderly manner. In fact, there are not many things in Balin Lake. Zhou Changyi has adhered to the principle of stable development over the years and has not expanded outwards. Instead, he has maintained the original 1/3 of an acre and developed steadily. Therefore, the industries we operate are still the original industries: spiritual rice, silk, white-scaled base, green-bearded spiritual shrimp, earth spirit meat mushroom, and yellow thorn vine. For Zhou Daocheng, they are not particularly precious items. They are conventional resources of average quality but in high demand. But these conventional resources can just be brought to the 100 insect poison swamp to help the family survive the initial stage of development. Zhou Changyi also went through Yifan's selection of candidates who needed to be brought to Bai Chong Poison Marsh. However, rather than choosing which people to go, it is better to select some people to stay, because most of the tribe members will most likely move to the 100 insect poison marsh. For this reason, Zhou Changyi also specially talked to Qin Lai. One of them looked after Balin Lake, and the other looked after the valley behind. They also had many exchanges and cooperation on weekdays. After Qin Lai thought for a long time, he said, "Since it is arranged by the young master, let me stay in person. It should not be a problem to take care of a white-scale lake. You just need to help bring the iron-backed bear there." However, after considering this, Zhou Changyi still shook his head and refused. He looked at Qin Lai in front of him and said calmly, "My child, you are not too old. You have a better way out by following Daocheng. And you are also a strong man at the 9th level of qi refining. He is an alchemist, and he will definitely develop better if he goes to the 100 insect poison swamp. As for White Scale Lake, it won't be of much value in the future. Just arrange for some monks in the late stage of qi refining to be stationed here, and with the help of formations, it shouldn't be a big problem." In Zhou Changyi's eyes, Qin Lai is just a child. He is only in his early 30s, and he follows Zhou Daocheng, so his attitude is very clear. Qin Lai thought for a while and nodded in agreement. At least in his own heart, he would rather go out and have a try than stay in Balin Lake for the rest of his life. "Okay, then I will continue to develop at young master's place, and here at Balin Lake." Perhaps after some deliberation, a decision was finally made. Among the Zhou family members and the casual cultivators under Qin Lai, each of them selected an 8th level qi refining cultivator to stay here to manage Balin Lake. It is easier to choose among the Zhou family members. After all, there are only 3 members of the Zhou family left from the Chong generation and 7 from the Shou generation. There are not many people to choose from. Among them, there are 3 old men of the Chong generation, one of whom is Zhou Changyi. He needs to go to Baichong Poison Marsh to take charge of the overall situation, so naturally he is not suitable to stay. Although the old patriarch has disabled legs and cannot do many things, as long as he is there, it is enough to unite people's hearts. As for the other 2 Changs, they are all weapon refiners. Now they are staying in Foggy Valley, so naturally they cannot choose. There are 7 senior members of the clan, 6 of whom are in Wugyufang City, 4 are weapon refiners, and 2 are relatively strong clan members working in the Zhou family spiritual artifact pavilion. Therefore, there is no choice, only the remaining clan member of the Shuzi generation can stay. This person is Zhou Shuyan, and he is the 19th in the Shou generation. He is not very old, and although he is not very strong, he was even a playboy when he was young, and he was also a troublesome person. However, as he grew older, he naturally became mature after experiencing many disasters of the destruction of his family. Now he is also taking on this task with ease. As for Qin Lai, the situation is relatively better. Although the remaining casual cultivators have average talents, they have also cultivated 2 8th-level qi refining cultivators under the supply of Zhou Daocheng's resources, namely Huang Zhou and Zhang Yin, who followed him the earliest. Therefore, Balin Lake can be directly handed over to the two of them. At the same time, the rest of the 6th and 7th level qi refining cultivators have all stayed in Balin Lake, and they are a group of strong combat forces. After the personnel are arranged, they only need to slightly sort out the resources accumulated this year, pack them up and wait. Zhou Daobai will come back. A deep forest mountain. Zhou Daobai had also arrived at the fastest speed. According to the route in his memory, he found this small mountain village hidden in the deep mountains and surrounded by clouds and mist. Seeing that there was no sign of destruction, Zhou Daobai also breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the formation was not destroyed, it meant that the Zhou family members were not harmed. Relying on the means of a foundation building expert, he walked into the formation silently. From a distance, you can see that a large number of houses have been built in it, forming a large village. It looks extremely exquisite and is full of vitality. A large number of tribesmen are walking in it and conducting trade. Compared to when I left, it was already a world of difference. If there were no powerful enemies to disturb me, this would be a paradise. Moreover, after some rough calculations, Zhou Daobai found that the population should increase slightly, reaching about 20,000. This is already very difficult. After all, the environment here is so harsh. Without strong people to protect them, it is really not easy for them to develop so well. Zhou Daocheng checked around and found 3 courtyards with higher walls at work, which were the homes of the 3 village chiefs. When they first left, the population of nearly 20,000 was divided into 3 villages, each managed by 3 village chiefs. These 3 village chiefs are also the people closest to the Zhou family's immortal bloodline and are worthy of trust. However, Zhou Daobai was not very familiar with these 3 village chiefs, so he naturally had no intention of reminiscing about the past, so he went directly to the village chief's home to reveal his identity. When the 3 village chiefs saw the immortal coming again, they were extremely shocked and hurriedly knelt down and worshipped. Zhou Daobai hurriedly helped them up. In terms of seniority alone, these few were probably his elders, so there was no way they would be in trouble. After Zhou Daobai appeased the 3 village chiefs, he also explained the purpose of his visit. The Zhou family's immortal family has been away for several years. This time I came here specifically just to check if any children have immortal roots. If so, they will be brought to live in the immortal family. Upon hearing the intention, the 3 village chiefs also showed joy on their faces and responded quickly, "No problem, I will take all the newborn babies over right away." Yes, Zhou Daobai nodded, and then added, "Bring all the children under 3 years old here." After all, it had not been checked for several years, so Zhou Daobai needed to check more carefully. What's more, even if all the children under the age of 3 were added up, the number would not be very large. After all, these Zhou family members had just recovered and it would take some time to multiply and grow. This is indeed the case. After almost a morning, the 3 village chiefs each came over with a team of people. Each team only had a dozen people, each holding a child. The total number was about 40 or 50 people. Immortal, these are all the children under the age of 3. There are 58 in total. I would like to ask the immortal to take a look at them. The elderly villager said respectfully. Zhou Daobai nodded and took out a stone plate for testing spiritual roots. This is the spirit testing plate, which is a first-level magic weapon and is a common magic weapon in the world of immortality. Although immortal cultivators can also directly test spiritual roots, it is far less convenient than directly using a spiritual measuring board. Test them one by one. If the soul measuring plate shines brightly, it means you have immortal roots. You can follow me to the immortal family to practice. Many 2- and 3-year-old children looked at this scene with confused eyes, with a little longing in their eyes. In fact, in the past, most people would wait until the child was 5 or 6 years old before testing their spiritual roots and then bringing them back to the family. Because only when children grow older and have mature thinking can they start learning exercises and spells. But this time, the Zhou family didn't have time to wait any longer and needed to add new blood as soon as possible, preferably starting from an early age. That's why we came to find these children under the age of 3. As the first child placed his hand on the spirit board, 4 different lights appeared, each one red, green, and gold, but the color was slightly duller. Zhou Daobai's eyes lit up. He let out a surprised sigh, and said, "You're lucky, I'm actually a 4th spirit root monk." Looking at the 2-year-old child, Zhou Daobai gently touched his head. If there were no accidents, this child would most likely join the Zhou family, learn martial arts and magic, and become a member of the Zhou family. When the child's mother saw this scene, she burst into tears of joy, hugged the child and wiped her tears. "I am happy about this, but of course I am also reluctant to give up. The joy is that my child can break away from mortals and become an immortal cultivator, with a longer lifespan and pursuing the long road to life. But more than anything, I am still reluctant to give up. Once I embark on this path, it means that I can never look back, and I will be separated from my parents." Seeing the child's mother crying sadly, the village chief also quickly expressed comfort. He patted the child's mother's shoulder gently with his old crutch and said, don't cry, don't cry. It's your blessing that Kier can be chosen by the gods. Ida's time to laugh. Kier's mother nodded repeatedly and kept wiping her tears, still unable to hide her reluctance. Although the child called Kier didn't understand what separation meant, he wiped his tears when he saw his mother crying. Zhou Daobai watched this scene patiently. This was a scenario he would encounter every time he tested his spiritual roots. After the child and his mother were separated, the child stood behind Zhou Daobai and carefully looked at the white-clothed immortal. He didn't know that his fate was about to change at this moment. After that, other people came up one after another to check. However, a dozen children in a row all had no spiritual roots. When their hands were placed on the spirit measuring board, they only emitted a gray light, which was extremely dim, indicating that they had no spiritual roots. This situation is the same as in the past. Although spiritual root tests are conducted every year, the number of children with spiritual roots is very small. Sometimes, among 30 or 40 children, not even one has spiritual roots. Zhou Daobai was actually very satisfied to find one this time. However, this time his luck seemed to be very good. When the test reached 35, the colorful light was emitted again. Zhou Daobai's eyes lit up and he looked over immediately. He saw 3 kinds of light flashing continuously, and the light was quite dazzling. 3 spiritual roots. Earth's spiritual root is the main one, accounting for 63%. Zhou Daobai saw the talent of this child at a glance and was immediately ecstatic. This kind of talented child should be brought back to the family to be well cultivated. At least he is an elder of the 9th level of Qi refining. Moreover, if the main one is Earth's spiritual root, it is more suitable to be handed over to Zhou Daocheng for teaching, and the future path will definitely not be too bad. The only pity is that this child is only 1.5 years old and looks very petite, but his eyes are smart and very energetic. At first glance, he is a smart child. Zhou Daobai couldn't help but sigh secretly. It seems that this time he came to the right place. One with 3 spiritual roots and one with 4 spiritual roots, brought back to the family to be well cultivated, is an excellent fresh blood. But the surprises were not over yet. When the last child was tested, light appeared on the spirit testing disc again, and it was still a 3-color light, red, gold and green. The main spiritual root was fire, which reached about 60%. This was also a child with extraordinary talent. This was also